call to order to the August 16th Community Redevelopment Agency meeting. We stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, does anybody like to have an opening prayer? Just a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. Mandy, roll call.
For the record, Mayor Dunn is not present at this meeting. Vice Mayor Inskeep.
Present.
Councilperson Mendoza is absent from this meeting. Councilman Lehman.
Here.
Councilwoman Cubbage. Present. Michelle Leonard, Assistant Clerk. Here. Jan Smith, Finance Officer.
Here.
Chad Ward, Public Works Manager.
Here.
And the city attorney is running a few minutes late, but we expect him to be here before the end of the meeting.
Number one on the agenda is the CRA board meeting minutes.
One more thing, sir.
Yes, sir.
The agenda for this meeting was posted on the city's website, City Hall Bulletin Board, on August 9th, 2023, and amended on August 15th to add back up to agenda item number 1.
Cool. Thank you, Mandy.
Thank you.
Now, number one, CRA board meeting minutes. Do we have a motion to approve the CRA minutes as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the CRA board minutes.
I'll second
I
it.
second that. Now we vote.
Yes.
Yep. All in favor?
All in favor? Aye. Aye. All opposed? Unanimous? Now we turn it over to you, Jan?
If you want to.
Or-
You can start better,
Okay. That's what the money was.
Okay, thank you. This is the third quarter update for CRA. What's before you on the screen is a summary of the revenues and expenses. As far as revenues go, CRA receives all of their revenue as of December 31st of the fiscal year. So the only additional revenue that is anticipated to come in is a little bit of interest income. So as of June 30th, actual revenue $381,000, and projected is just a little bit more than that. We've had a major decrease in capital projects that were actually canceled, the wayfinding signs, the digital city hall signs, those projects. So that has been removed from the anticipated projection. That's about it for the revenues. Revenues are usually very simple when it comes to CRA. As far as the transfers from reserve, that's used to balance the budget. And it's really all been removed because the new revenue coming in is projected to cover all the expenses for the current year. Any questions?
I do not. Anybody else? Rex? Jan?
Good, thank you.
Okay.
Public? Okay, next.
Okay, as far as expenses go, as of June 30th, the actuals are about $76,700 that has been spent year to date. Projected, with projection, and I'll go into this a little more, I'm projecting $304,000. The reason being, as far as personnel, there were some salary increases, so I projected a little bit, not counting the CRA manager position. So that's been decreased about $25,000. Operation expenses has been decreased about $25,000 because of cancellation of the Main Street program. And capital projects, there's been a significant decrease of $325,000, and I do explain that it's primarily for the City Hall digital sign, the wayfinding signage, and the solar lighting projects that were canceled. Now, the $178,590, there is an error that I do apologize. I still have the code enforcement and permitting software in there, so that should decrease by $3,000. So that number really should be $175,590. What makes that up is there's still the 173, at this budget it was 173 for the Loop Run Park Restroom project, which has not been canceled, so I still carry it forward. Even though intuition tells me it's not going to get done this year, it still needs to stay in as a projection.
Gotcha.
And then there was a very small amount, $590 spent on the new sign here at City Hall. So that's what the $590 is. And as far as grants, actual year-to-date grant reimbursements. Now the grants, those are the facade grants that the property owners come in and request to help rehabilitate the project. We've actually reimbursed about $31,000 so far. I do project the remainder of what's budgeted because as of June, it's a real unknown how much would still be left to be reimbursed. And whatever doesn't get reimbursed just stays in the fund. It doesn't go anywhere but CRA.
Is there a time frame for folks to submit their reimbursements?
Actually, the projects need to be approved by June 30. If they don't submit the reimbursements prior to year end for us to cut a check.
Fiscal year end?
Fiscal year end, which is September 30th. Now, if they submit for reimbursement, it gets approved as of September 30. We will pay it out in the new year, but it actually gets recorded as a reimbursement for old year. It's just an accounting function.
Okay.
So deadline, definitely by the end of the fiscal year.
Thank you.
And the monies that are budgeted for the grants is really at the discretion of both the person preparing the budget and the CRA board. There's no fixed amount. I think before there was a little bit of confusion with grants, that it was thought that these monies came from another agency as revenue for us to give out.
Gotcha.
That's not the case.
Right.
It's actually CRA funding,
Right.
tax money,
Yes.
that we earmark to allow for grants. So we've increased it for next year. And that'll be discussed, of course, at the budget workshop.
Okay.
But Georgina carried over in this current year what was left over from the prior year.
Okay.
So there wasn't as much money to give out, but we're really not spending it right now.
Right.
But if there's a push to go ahead and get this money out, maybe open it up to the city or whatever's decided, we may get some more, takers.
Okay.
And I know they're working on revising the grant policy that would come before the board at some point.
Okay.
So anyway, I'm projecting overall, if we were to spend it like it's projected, we would end up with a surplus of $76,000 to go back into the fund
Gotcha.
at year end.
Into the CRA.
Into the CRA. This is only CRA, it can't cross over to the general fund.
So the 391,000 that you're showing, that's in the general budget for last year for the cancellation, and then the CRA funds are separate.
No. This is just the CRA fund.
Oh, okay.
This is not representative of general fund at all. So the decrease that you're seeing on that very last line, that 391,000, that's adding up all the decreases
Right, I saw that.
from the current year.
Right.
I'm projecting that we're not going to spend 391,000 of what was budgeted. Is that clear as mud?
No, I think I was seeing the city of Dunnellon, the tax thing on top, but this is a CRA meeting, so I was just kidding.
Yeah, well, see, CRA is what's considered a tax increment financing district.
Right.
Because CRA revenue, tax revenue, comes from when the CRA areas were.
No, I understand that.
Oh,
I was
okay.
just reading the top.
Oh, okay. But yeah, it's synonymous. CRA and tax increment financing district, or TIF, it's one and the same.
Okay, thank you.
And again, general fund money can come into TIF with approval from council. I don't ever recall TIF money ever going into the general fund, and I'm not so sure that's allowed. But it can come from the other way. The 125 park that was originally planned, that was donations that we took in on the general fund side that we were going to move to the CRA fund to do that park that was in the CRA area.
Okay.
Any more questions? Okay, now, Mandy, if you go to the next schedule, which is the CRA spending plan. I've given you a shortened version of this as far as the projects. I've left the project titles out there, but I've not shown you prior years. I figured this is what was really important, was just the year before and the current year is really what the focus is. And it just shows the breakdown. Basically, it's the same thing as the summary. It shows the beginning revenue of $844,000. That's what will start. That was in the fund at the beginning as of October 1. New revenue for a total amount of $1.2 million. And then your actual expenditures. And it shows the same identical thing as on the previous schedule. This is mainly to break out the specific projects, if there were any more detail to give you. And you'll see at the very bottom, under, Mandy, if you can scroll down a little bit, please. Under the set aside and restricted reserve, there's $350,000. That is for the 484 multimodal project. That has been completely set aside to be, and I believe, if I remember correctly, I believe I brought it into the budget for next year because I heard they were going to start that project.
Right.
So you'll see that 350,000 moved up to the top,
Okay.
above the line as we.
Okay. So it'll come out of this reserve and move up to the project.
It will.
Okay.
And there'll still be an amount, if you see in the far column, the very last box in the lower right-hand corner, that 560,000, there'll still be an amount that is not budgeted, that's in the TIF fund, that generically is for property acquisition or whatever you all would want me to call it. It's just, CRA is required that you either budget, appropriate, budget mean the same thing, and obligate, all funds. They have to be all tied up for anticipated to be spent. Time frame, well, that just depends on the projects. There used to be a 3-year time frame. That has been waived.
Okay.
So there is no real time frame to spend. What you have to keep in mind is CRA will end in approximately 9 years. You can continue it with a formal process. You can re-up it. If you choose not to, any monies remaining in the fund have to be split between the city of Dunnellon and Marion County, because Marion County funds part of CRA. So there would have to be an analysis done, probably based on a percentage of what would get refunded back to Marion County.
Okay. In that process, in the end of '24 is when it presently is, so we have to do something with that process.
No, 9 years from now.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong thing.
You're on the wrong budget.
Yes, yes.
32 instead of
Cool.
23.
Right.
Yeah, so you got time.
I'm on the wrong topic, okay.
Yeah, but it's just a thought, to put it out there, if you all happen to be on the board again. I know it's 2 terms, but I'm not sure if you can take a break and, get back on. Are there any questions? Okay, the very last schedule is showing your reserves. There's $1,098,000 in the bank in a TIFT bank account. It's not commingled with any other funds of the city. That money is split out between, and I'm on line 55. I'm on the third column in the 630 balance. It's at $798,000. That's what's used for your everyday expenses to come in and out of, and any excess reserve that might be end up staying in there, and then of course the $350,000 that is set aside. The difference between the two numbers, there's money sitting in the payroll bank account and the accounts payable bank account to pay bills. That's why that doesn't, it's, the bottom number is not the same as the bank account number, because TIF money is spread out because we're paying payroll, we've cut checks, so monies are located in other bank accounts.
Okay.
But bottom line, the TIF fund has $1.1 million. That's what that does represent as of June 30. Are there any questions?
Is this some of the money that's invested that we're getting higher interest rates on?
The TIF money I have not put into CDs because I'm not sure where we're going with TIF yet.
Okay.
But we are earning a little bit more on these bank accounts. We used to earn 0.1%.
Right.
We're earning 0.5%.
Okay.
So as soon as you all indicate more what you're doing, if you're really not going to be doing any major projects for a while, I'll feel more confident to go ahead and invest it. Even though Brandon says we can liquidate a CD with no penalty, this was just a real unknown to me.
Gotcha.
But the rest of the city's monies, absolutely, they're invested, and we're even getting a little more interest.
Okay.
Because CDs I've laddered the CDs. 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and 12 months. And a couple are coming due in September, another in December, so we keep reinvesting. I keep calling to say, what can you do for us?
Okay.
So we are doing very well compared to prior years.
So to make money off of this money, we need to figure out future projects, i.e. future cash flow from TIF.
Yes.
And then have a comfortable amount that we're comfortable with, and we think that we can invest in CDs.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And what we can do is, for 3 months, that's the least I can do. So if we know we're not going to spend $500,000 in the next 3 months, I'll go ahead and put that into a CD.
Right.
And then if we still don't spend it, I'll roll it over, because Brandon, they know we're not going to liquidate a CD unless we need it, but we can. They've given us, the opportunity to do that. With no penalty, we get to keep all the interest that's earned to date. So I just need a little bit of direction, and maybe, I know there's going to be more discussion on CRA and where you all want to go with it. So I think within the next probably few months, I'll have a clear direction and be able to invest the money.
Probably we should be able to figure that out during the last meeting or so of the budget process.
If you feel comfortable doing that, sure,
Okay.
absolutely, because then in September, which is 3 weeks away,
Right,
give or
it's
take,
quick, right?
because we have a CD coming due September 9th, I can add to it. Well, I'm going to keep TIF money completely separate.
Right, gotcha.
So it'll be in its own separate CD, so we can do a CD at any point in time. I could call Tuesday. If there's a consensus on investing, I'll call Tuesday and say, okay, let's move some money.
Okay, that's probably something we really need to get moving on. Seems like we're leaving a lot of money on the table, so we'll get after it.
You are, yeah, and I think one of the biggest things was the Blue Run Park restrooms.
Right.
With that kind of changing and not,
Right.
and I know the feel of council
Sure.
on that, but I don't feel comfortable making that decision.
No, it's all good. Right. So we need to get moving on it. We will. Okay,
And then we can go ahead and do that.
cool.
And then that interest will go back into the TIF fund.
Okay,
It won't get commingled, because right now, all our interest earnings are deposited into our emergency reserve.
okay.
That's what's helping to fund our emergency. And emergency reserve, your general fund emergency reserve can be used for anything. A revenue shortfall, you call that an emergency. Or a natural disaster, if we have to dip into money before the insurance kicks in. So it can really be used at your discretion, whatever you guys feel it's an emergency, or if there's a project and you wanted to take some money from it, you could do that as well.
Yeah.
So that's where all our interest earnings are going at
Okay,
the
great.
present time.
Okay, awesome.
So unless there are any more questions, that wraps it up, and I'm early.
All right. Rex, Jan, Mandy, anybody? Michelle? Anybody from the audience have anything? Zoom land?
No, sir.
Can we have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn?
And I would second that motion.
Right. We need a vote? No, vote?
All in favor?
Aye. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Unanimous? CRA meeting adjourned.
Of course I will.
Call to order the council meeting for August 16th. Everybody please rise for pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag. Somebody like to do a prayer and do a moment of silence? Okay, thank you. Just want to let everybody know, in case there's an emergency, we have the exit that you all came through, and then through this door and at the side building is a secondary exit. Thank you. Andy, roll call.
Mayor Dunn.
Here.
Vice Mayor Inskeep.
Here.
Councilperson Mendoza. Here. Councilman Lehman.
Here.
Councilwoman Covey. Present. Michelle Leonard, Assistant Clerk. Here. James Smith, Finance Officer. Here. Judge Ward, Public Works Manager.
Here.
Chief Scaglione.
I think he's walking.
Who do you know?
No, just Chief. Chief Scaglione. Here. Yeah, Ronnie. And Lieutenant Bray is here. City Attorney Andrew Hand.
I'm here.
The agenda for this meeting was posted on the city's website, the City Hall Bulletin Board on Wednesday, August 9th, 2023, and amended on August 10th to add back up to agenda item number 1.
Good. Do we have any council comments on this agenda? No. Do we have any public comments that are non-agenda items? So anything that's not on the agenda that anybody would like to make a comment, you have 3 minutes to do so. Yes, yeah. Please give your name and address when you get to the podium. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
My name's Kathleen Goodlow. I'm at 19154 St. Lawrence Drive in Dunnellon. And I'm up here about a rescue that has opened up in our neighborhood. And I've been talking with Chad about it, and everything that I've read about the rescues with the nonprofit, the first thing that they say that you have to do is find out to make sure you're in the right zone. And also what I've read about it is that the only reason that you don't have to get a kennel license is because you're a nonprofit. Okay, so it just makes it where you don't have to get a kennel license, but they're telling me that she's allowed to do it. She's up to 20 dogs. It's right in my backyard. We're zoned, I think, in R3. According to the zoning, a kennel should be in a B3 or a B4, not in an R3. She's got dangerous dogs. She's got dogs that get out. She's got fencing that's, like 6 foot high through the front of her house. And so I just want to see why is it that she is not forced to abide by the zoning.
I'll say thanks for coming out. Typically, we don't have a conversation at this point, but
Okay.
we're really happy that you came out to make us aware.
So what do I do to push it since they're saying that it's not?
That's what I was just going to ask. How do we address this?
Well, we had adopted Marion County's animal control ordinance a few years back. So we would have to look and see what the county ordinance says, whether or not it's permitted, because we don't have our own animal control ordinance anymore.
Okay.
Chad, did we do follow-up to see what the county code was?
Yeah, we did, and I also had a conversation with Andrew. She's right, a kennel does have to be in B3 or B4. Marion County is saying she's not a kennel, she's a nonprofit rescue, which makes her exempt from being a kennel. Because she's not a kennel, and she doesn't have to be in a B3, she can be anywhere. And an issue we'll have to bring up, we talked to Andrew about. Andrew may be able to answer better and more.
Yes, that's my understanding based on what Chad has, from his conversations with the county and so forth. And what's really available here, you know, because the city is under the umbrella of the county, essentially that's the way it's interpreted. Now, that doesn't mean that, you know, a rescue organization, even if it's permitted within a residential area, doesn't need to comply with the city's noise ordinance and public nuisance regulations. So if there are some issues, you know, there from that standpoint, that's something else. And of course, there are private rights of action for nuisances as well. And ultimately, I think that's where the city is now, having gone to the county's ordinance. It's consistent, you know, throughout Marion County. The county is doing enforcement as opposed to the city. So it essentially becomes a county issue. At least as far as, you know, what's going on in the land use there. But public nuisance and so forth, that's outside of that, and that is certainly within under the city's umbrella.
Okay.
So I'm hearing some next good steps might be to contact county commissioners.
It's not so much a county, it's the county's ordinance, and that's how it works. Now, the city doesn't have a specific, you know, zoning code that speaks to rescue organizations, and the way that the ordinance is being interpreted is the same way the county interprets it. So ultimately, you know, I think any changes, if the county were to make changes, if the city were going to make changes to the ordinance, first of all, if the city were to make changes to the ordinance, that needs to run through the county because county enforcement, right? Now, if the county were to make changes and the city subsequently adopt them, still that, you know, grandfathers in existing uses. So there's still an issue there. So I think ultimately, you know, where it's at is, are there code enforcement violations for noise? Are there code enforcement violations for public nuisance? And that is enforceable. And so, you know, that's the question. And then, of course, private right of action and so forth is outside of the city's umbrella. But, you know, that's an avenue that exists.
So the zoning doesn't have anything, so it just negates that the zoning doesn't matter? So any nonprofit can just come into a residential neighborhood and start whatever business they want?
According to Marion County, that's the answer.
So how do I push it? What do I do so I just got to go to the county then and try to get it? I mean, because it's just dangerous, like kids can't even drive down the street, dogs literally.
I'm thinking that would fall underneath noise and other public nuisances that we ought to be able to work with you
When
on.
it comes to dangerous animals, so like that's a completely different
She does, she has dangerous
thing.
animals.
Yeah, that's completely different than being a kennel. I mean,
So that's reporting to animal control and local police.
yeah.
And that is also under the county's ordinance, dangerous dogs and that type of thing. So that is something that,
But with
County should handle
the noise and the public nuisance and the dangers, the city should be able to help also, is that correct?
yes.
Okay.
So, yeah, police department handle all that dangerous dog, and the animal control handles dangerous dogs.
Okay.
But the noise violation and everything else, that would be the police department. We could do noise ordinance and stuff, that would be the police department. Code-wise, under that nonprofit animal rescue, it took away the kennel out of the name. And a kennel is where we enforce what zone she's in. So that's where we're stuck. She's not listed as a kennel, she's a
Right,
nonprofit.
okay.
Not a kennel.
So code enforcement's hands are tied, but these other ones, we use law enforcement to help with some of this.
I just don't understand why zoning, you know, like yet everything that I read, it stated that basically the only thing that the nonprofit does is just, she doesn't have to buy a kennel license. That's it. But I don't understand why it negates everything else and why she doesn't have to abide by zoning and you know, and that she can just have something like this in a residential neighborhood.
I'm going to give her my information so I can talk with her.
We can give it to
Okay. I'll get in touch with you, and we'll see what's going on, and we'll see what avenue we can go down.
I have a question, rather a statement or a question. She has all these dogs, are they kenneled or inside the house or back and forth?
She
Do you have
has
any idea?
put fencing, which is another issue because it's still, you know, high in the front, but she has sectioned off her whole entire yard, like probably about 5 sections. She has holes that come out the side of every part of her house that are doggy doors, that they go out in and out to every little section. And she's put up this white paneling on over the chain link fencing. It just looks horrible, you know, I mean, I couldn't even probably sell my house if I wanted to, because it's just an eyesore. They bark nonstop all day long. The yards it's a complete disaster over there. She's got tires buried into the ground. It's just a mess. I mean, you'd have to drive by it. It's, you know.
Have you had animal control come and take a look at it and see what they
I've got
have?
autumn complaints.
Have they come out? They did. What
Yeah.
did they say?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah, but she's fine. And now she's up to 20 dogs.
They,
So really not anything, you know, with respect, nothing that we're going to resolve here.
Right.
I appreciate your calls. I was also waiting to hear what the county had to say. It sounds like Tim is also willing to outreach. So we'll be in touch to continue
Yeah.
to try to move forward.
Yeah.
Thank
You and I
you.
will get together, and we'll see what's going on, and see what we can do.
Also, I'll be in touch with animal control also. I'll get your information from Andy.
Cool. Thank you, Jan.
Thomas Rose. Thomas.
Hi, my name is Tom Cross, 19611 Southwest 88th Street. Haven't been here long enough to remember where I'm at in Dunnellon. Longtime board member in another town, very similar to this, and I swore I wouldn't come down and harass you people, but I am. And I only come when it relates to the river, and I think you should consider the issue with the 9 Allen Cove. If I'm following off of Facebook and other items like that, people say you have road issues, you have police station issues. My board had the same issues. They're day-to-day issues. There'll be day-to-day issues 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, as the town grows. I wrote something up. I'd like to hand it in. But what I'm going to suggest to you is this is an issue for your kids and your grandkids and their grandkids. I think you take it, you try to set it up in such a way, if we get it, because there's no guarantee that we get it, but if you get it, it's set the way it is, you leave it the way it is, you put it in charge of Conservation Board. When we took things, we tried to tie other boards into this issue, so that if somebody wanted to break it, it was not just your board, it was not just a state board, but a Conservation Board, another board would have to sign off on it, and it kept it the way it is. I have an issue, to be honest with you, the way the county runs the parks up here. You can't drive by that place on a Saturday or Sunday and somebody's going to get killed. And very shortly, they're going to all be screaming at you because they're going to think it's you, and there's something wrong with that, and the county should address it. I don't know how, it's an issue. They make bigger park, and it's just going to be the same issue. But somehow, it's got to be addressed. And my concern is, I don't want that to turn into this, but I think we'd be making a mistake if we didn't take land. I'll leave this, and my issue is I had a farm up there, and I don't know where I am at town, but basically, the farm was a family farm. It got sold off 40, 50 years ago, 60, 70 years ago now, at $10,000 and $15,000 an acre. As the lots became available before they were developed, I bought the adjoining lots at $120,000 an acre. I had tractor issues, I had basically tractor issues were road issues. I could barely afford them, but I had an old gentleman that bought the land, and he gave me time to borrow the money to buy those lots. I got old enough, I sold the farm, and I came down here. I will never see a return on that, but I saw a return on the farm. So it's an investment that supports the town of Dunnellon. And my comment would be, please support it. Doesn't mean you're going to get it. It'll come down, it'll be another headache, and probably I'll come down here and ask you again to do something to support it. But I think it's the right thing to do for the town and the future of the town. And I don't know how we do this. I mean, we did open time up there a little different than you guys do, so if I did it all at once, I apologize. I tried to write something, never written anything in my life, I just always winged it. So I didn't read it, and I'll leave it with your secretary if I can. And thank you for your time, board.
Thank you.
And let's just be reminded you that this is non-agenda item
Right.
only.
Right.
So if it's a non-agenda item,
I'm with you. Got you, Mandy. Thank you.
Martha Johnston,
My name is Martha Johnston. I live at 20718 Park Avenue, and I would like to know how I get a speed bump on my road. People use it as a freeway. They go 50 and 60 miles an hour, and there's a stop sign at both ends of the road. I holler at people. They tried to run me over yesterday morning. I went to the police department. It's ridiculous. What steps do I take to get a speed bump? Because you get a speed bump, they ain't speeding no more.
Martha, what road is this? What road is this?
What road?
Yes.
Park Avenue. They turn at the Texaco and they go all the way to the school to take their kids. There's a school for autism on one side of me, and there's one of the kids that go to that school on the other side of me. It's highly dangerous.
Well,
So who do I talk to about getting one of these? Do I have to sign a petition? Do I have to?
we'll have to ferret that out because I'm not sure. But what we can do is we can contact our police department here.
Well, I've been to the police department 10 times.
Okay.
And they keep telling me that the 15-mile-an-hour sign that's on my road isn't my speed limit. That's what the speed limit says. That's what my sign says. But these people aren't even going 25. They're going 50 and 60.
Okay. Let us look into it and we'll get back. 'Cause I don't have an answer for you now. Let somebody else talk.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I just want to interject before we have the next public comment that we can listen to the 3 minutes of comment, but that there's really not going to be a lot of back and forth and resolution because we're really just information gathering and then we can get back to people. But to try to, parse out a lot of different problems in 3 minutes will just really hold things up. There's a lot of people here today.
Thank you, Julianne.
David Koger,
My name is David Koger. I live at 11983 Palmetto Way, Dunnellon, Florida. First, I would like to thank the Public Works Department for showing up and getting some signs out in the river to hopefully control the swimming and anchoring and mooring, hindering the access to and from the takeout ramp at the Blue Moon Park. My next issue I'd like to talk about is I understand that we currently have plans that were drawn up by Kimberly Horn or still in the process, 60% plans to eliminate the parking on Pennsylvania Avenue between the bridge and downtown. And to do that and do the improvements and plans they want to do, this is to create a bike path. And I like bikes. I think it's going to be detrimental to the city. I would personally like to see Kimberly Horn's impact study on that, if that's available to me. My biggest concern is the old utilities in the city of Dunnellon. When you start paving and reconstructing roads and with these old clay terracotta pipes, you're going to wind up in hundreds of thousands of dollars of utility reconstruction. So it's only 60% plans. I know people like bikes, but I think the city has to look at the financial impact of what this road is going to do to the city. And if you're going to put this kibosh on it, it's 60% plans is a good time to do it. So I think the city needs to look at that, because if you look at their study and see what their study says about the utility relocations and the potential for damage to utilities with all the sewer pipes and water pipes that have been here since the 40s and 50s, 60s, you are asking for trouble. So if whoever's got access to those plans, I would like a chance to look at it myself and provide some feedback to the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paula Koger,
Paula Koger, and I live with Davis, so I don't need to give the address to, oh, I do, I know, 11983 Palmetto Way, Dunnellon, Florida, 34432. I am here to thank Chad. Phew, man, what an ideal thing it was for him to come over and put those signs up. We have literally been living with 10 to 20 boats in our back door. Well, also I have to thank the police chief, Scaglione, because he called Chad and authorized him where to put those signs. So it's a matter of really getting things cooperated and working together to get things going. And that's a wonderful challenge we get to place. And I thank our Hollywood mayor for his part and all of you. But I wanted to ask you one thing that I heard, and it was that the people at KP Hold pay $20 apiece, and all of the money that's collected goes to Marion County, and we don't get any of it. And we figured out how much they're getting, you know, way up there, $84,000 a month. They're getting that money from the traffic down their river because they control it. But there's got to be some kind of move that we can make to get some of that. Oh, I'm going to believe it, whether you do or not. I don't give up that easy. And I think there's got to be some way we can look at that. No way. We're going to find some way. That's what I want. So if anybody has any, yes, we'll do it, I'm happy to hear that and work with you to get that done. There's a will, there's a way.
Thank you, Paula.
Manny, can I ask you real quick, the meeting on the 21st is going to be about the park, correct?
The meeting on the 21st
Isn't there a meeting August 20th?
is a budget workshop.
I thought you knew. Okay, thank you.
I don't have anyone else signed up, but I have a hand raised in Zoom.
Hi there, this is Katie Guy. I have a comment about two items that are on the agenda, but I'm not able to stay until the end of the meeting, and I have a piece of information that I thought would be helpful for the council's discussion. So I wanted to request permission to speak now. Did you all hear me?
Yes.
Would
Everybody.
the council allow her to speak on an agenda item now, even though we're on non-agenda items?
I would say you should submit that in writing and take it up later.
Submit my comments in writing?
Yes, ma'am. Or you can say till the agenda item comes up.
Okay, and when the item comes up, will I do this week before you all have discussion on it, or do I have to wait until the end of the meeting?
No, each section of the agenda, when the item comes up, we have public comments for each item, not at the end.
Okay, all right. Okay, I will wait till then. Thank you.
I don't have anyone else signed up.
Okay. Consent agenda. Before we make a motion to approve the consent agenda, is there any public comment? Do we have a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous? Passes. Okay, we're now on the regular agenda, item number 6. The STR ordinance, vacation rentals.
Council, I can speak to this. This is just an informational item. So you can see some of the changes, and I'll provide an update as well. The only changes that have been made to the ordinance since the last time you saw it were further discussion, some of the details regarding inspections. That's the sole change, and as I understand it as well, this went to the Planning Commission last evening and was approved unanimously, and when I say approved, I mean simply reviewed for consistency with the comp plan and trying to be consistent.
Great.
Now, you won't be voting on anything tonight, so it's up to you whether or not you want to accept public comment on this item, because you're not taking any action, but I'm pretty sure that's probably
Yeah.
why Ms. Geis.
I would say if Katie wants to talk, she can talk right now.
And Council, one thing I would tell you too, the city did receive a letter today, and I am prepared to address that if you like, or we can address that at a later time as well.
Oh, letter is that, Andrew?
It's a letter from David Singer, attorney of
Oh, I
Fuller,
see
Lundy,
now.
Koch, and Martino.
Okay. Can you address that, Andrew?
I'd be happy to. The letter came in, essentially it's an introduction from the author of the letter, and it starts off citing the firm's experience in land use zoning and local government law, and the letter moves down and discusses as-applied challenges. And first, I think I would applaud the vacation rental owners for seeking counsel on this. I think what the letter is aimed at is prevention of violation of rights, and no one should have their rights violated. So, it's good to have counsel and have someone take a look at things and make sure things are on the up and up. And I also know from speaking with counsel, it's certainly not counsel's intention to violate anyone's rights. So starting with that, looking at the body of the letter, what the letter is stating is that if the ordinance is passed, I'll just read a quote, it's likely to invite a bevy of as-applied challenges from homeowners seeking to avail their property of a use specifically permitted by statute. First thing to address is what as-applied challenge means as opposed to a facial challenge. This is a legal term that you see most often probably used in takings law, which I won't touch on. You may have heard some of that before. And a facial challenge simply is when you have an ordinance that is already constitutionally inviolate, or there's a problem on the face of the ordinance. This is talking about an as-applied challenge where if the city didn't apply the ordinance correctly. So we're not talking about a drafting issue with the ordinance itself. Nonetheless, the writer of the letter, does use some common assertions, overly burdensome, that it is vague and so forth. And I don't take an issue with that. Well, that's attorneys. So understood there. But these regulations and so forth, and what I'll get into, they come specifically from statute, I think, what we're about to get into. The letter focuses primarily on fire inspections. And the next portion of the letter states that the draft ordinance perhaps prematurely surmises that a commercial standard of occupancy with respect to a litany of fire safety regulations would automatically apply to vacation rentals. That's not the case. What the ordinance cites, it does cite the fire code, because that's specifically what, as we discussed, at length here, Florida statutes preempt certain types of regulations, but specifically do permit, under 509(3)(2), local governments to apply fire safety standards and to conduct inspections for that, and for building inspections. So that is addressed there. That is why the language reads as it does. That does not mean, and should not mean, that the owner of a vacation rental is going to have regulations that do not apply to them. That would be a problem, and that was litigated, actually, in Souter versus the city of St. Augustine, where the city of St. Augustine did prevail in that action. And what the basis of that action was, St. Augustine's language is very, very, very similar to city of Dunnellon's language by design. And that particular language allowed the city of St. Augustine to apply fire safety code and the life safety code. Of course, the life safety code does not apply, as we've discussed, to residential structures. It is part of the fire safety code. And the court looked at that and said, no, that's fine. Just because it doesn't apply, you're still statutorily allowed to, cite to that, and there very well could be transient public lodging establishments that it does apply to. So if it doesn't apply, it won't be applied. So that is not an issue. The ordinance also addresses, it talks about vague inspection requirements. For compliance, it must be meant for owners to rent the property. Violations of the draft ordinance defer to the general penalty for enforcement, which specifically provides that violators could face up to 60 days imprisonment. That is the city's catch-all phrase within the code enforcement section per state statute. Now, what's important here, we're talking specifically about fire inspections only. And if you look at the text of the ordinance, what the text of the ordinance specifically says when it comes to fire inspections, if instances of noncompliance are found, all such instances of noncompliance shall be handled as other violations of the Florida Fire Prevention Code are otherwise handled in the city. That is specifically addressed, and the rules of statutory construction, of course, here apply, and if there's something more specific, that is what applies. There is no jail time for fire inspections. That's covered under Chapter 2. A first-time violation, if I recall correctly, is $100. For a second-time violation, $200. And on there, having to have a hearing with a special magistrate if it's above and beyond that. So certainly, I am not aware of any instance in the city's past where the owner of any property has been jailed for a fire inspection violation. So again, something that I don't think is applicable here. There are some further comments that address statements by city officials that law mandates these fire inspections. To clarify there, and what I've discussed before with council is no, that's not the case. This letter is correct, and that this writer, Mr. Singer, is correct in that case. The law does not mandate fire inspections. What the law mandates is the city is responsible for enforcing the fire safety code and has the option of conducting fire inspections. Currently, the city does not conduct fire inspections for vacation rentals. The initial ordinance, that was a very limited registration ordinance, did not provide for inspections either for that reason. But the city is in charge of enforcement, and there are some specific Florida Administrative Code requirements that do apply. Now, that's, I think, in previous meetings, we've discussed that that would be part of the information that is provided, so that owners are aware of what applies to their types of units, specifically single family. And it's not a long list. Simply list, it's the regulations regarding primary and secondary egress and access to the property, smoke detector regulations, that type of thing. So that is something that'll be part of the city's information efforts, and it's part of state law. I think that's really all that the correspondence brings up. So if there's any questions on that, if that further develops, I'll be sure to keep you informed. But that's what was received today, right before I left to come to the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Now we're ready for public comments.
Hi there, this is Katie Geis, 12205 Palmetto Way. So first, I think that just in respect to the inspections, that's where we still have this last really painful sticking point where I feel like it's still very confusing for us. And it's confusing because in lots of discussions, I've heard the city council get a lot of comfort in the fact that, the state requires this and we're simply enforcing or pointing to what the state is requesting and expecting. And so in those conversations that I've had with the highest levels within the Department of Business and Professional Regulations with Secretary Griffin and Deputy Director Doherty, it is clear that the state does not request or require inspections, fire safety inspections for vacation rental, which also, you know, kind of validates the how we right-size regulations for what is appropriate for single-family homes in this instance, which is the spirit of having proper measures and the list and the pamphlet that the DPBR, who is the licensed agency that we are bound to work with, all of that makes sense. Pointing to a very voluminous and kludgy fire safety and prevention code is simply not practical and leaves so much in respect to hooks to eventually shut people down that's where I'm still really struggling. And so it was illuminating to me to finally get clarity that it is not in fact required, which also explains why it's been so difficult and completely impractical to even get anyone to come out and do an inspection. So I just impress upon the council, there are so many important matters in your hands right now. The opportunity to preserve a very treasured asset like 9 Island Cove, and so much good energy and time and effort should be put towards doing good for this community for the long run. That something as messy and as complicated and laden with issues as trying to require inspections simply doesn't seem to fit. So I ask for consideration of that provision, and I'd be willing and excited and really happy to talk with Mr. Hand or anyone further about that, so that we could get to a resolution that we can all live with. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Katie. Anybody else, Mandy?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. Next, Ms. Cubby's 9 Island Cove property.
Yes, why we're here today is to hopefully give consideration that should Florida Forever Communities Trust send an appraiser here sometime in 2024. You have to understand this legislature we now have is going back to the budget again in January, and this is a new council sitting here. The council that signed the letter that went with the application for 9 Island Cove to be A-listed was signed by Mayor Bill White. Okay, and now that we're A-listed and there's a new fiscal year coming up, our hope is that we could lobby our regional representatives and get enough support from them, which looks like it's really going to happen. It's going to happen. But it takes some lobbying. It takes a lobbying effort to do this. And I would like my fellow council members to just consider that here's what this letter leads to. It simply says that if the appraiser that is sent from Florida DEP, and of course that goes probably, that appraiser simply works for Florida Community Trust, comes here and does work out a deal with the owners of the properties, of the 49 acres, that then the city would accept to manage that property. Now here's, I think, where a lot of confusion has been. There is no timeline enforced upon the city once we accept management. We can let that property sit there because this is a conservation easement, besides being a, quote, proposed low-impact passive park. And so there's no pressure And because we're a small city, we are dependent on grants, contributions, and so on. I don't want to get into the management plan, because there are some things within the management plan that are absolutely not necessary. One thing mentioned in the management plan was a parking lot. If you have been out there, there's a street at there. Chad, it's at the Dunnellon Street. It's got a street sign on it. Is that correct? I saw that street sign. Yeah, it's a Dunnellon Street. And that bisects the property, and there are residents on the far north end of it that use that road. So it's a right-of-way. It's more than a right-of-way, it is a street. It's not maintained that I can see, but it's held up very well because it's in use. The parking lot, I counted 30 spots where cars could park alongside. It's got a big solid shoulder on it, 20 definitely, and you could add 10 more by just taking a bush hog down the side of the road and chopping up the shrubs and brushes. So let's think, leaving it the way it is pretty much. There are paths there. Sandra Marfino has some slides to show showing how well those paths are maintained. There's nothing that our public maintenance department has to go in and clear out. There's nothing dangerous there. It is used by the neighborhood children and residents to walk dogs. The kids go down there and throw in a fishing line and pull out fish. And Juliana had mentioned their trespassing. Well, apparently the people who own those lots don't mind that the public has been using it, because there's not a no trespassing sign out there. I've been out there twice in 3 weeks to walk it and drive it. There's not a no trespassing sign there. And here's what happened. Here's how this came to us.
Point of order. This agenda item, request for letter of support for state funding and acquiring the 9 Island Cove property, is something from the last workshop where the letter was written, and this today is a vote of whether or not we send the letter on. It's an opportunity for public comment.
Yes.
I feel as though we're beginning to get into the weeds about parking lots. You referred to a management plan when I think you really meant prospectus. And I think that there's a lot of very confusing information being presented right in this moment, and that we need to avoid that, and we need to hear what the public has to say, and we have to continue to get our facts straight. I have a pile of information that was delivered to me tonight that I have not yet had the opportunity to look at. So I ask that we stick to what this agenda item is, letter of support, yes or no, and that we get our public input so that we can have a vote. Thank you.
I would like to ask my fellow council people one question. Have you been out there and walked the property?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you been out
Now,
there?
can I speak?
Many times, many times.
Many times, Julian? Have
We're
you
going by
had-
bicycle out there.
So I just want to know if you have seen
Yes,
the river, the trails and so
both
on.
by land and by water, many times.
Thank you, that's what I want to know. Okay, so what we're asking today is for a letter of approval from this council for Mayor Dunn to sign this letter that will be taken to the Marion County Legislative Delegation that is going to be held at noon on September 13th. Now that date, please listen, is important. We have a council meeting on September 13th. So we must make a move to either decide to sign this letter or not. Unless we have a special meeting to give you all more time, that's what it would take. Monday's meeting is a
This
budget
is up for vote
workshop.
tonight. We need public comment.
I didn't think
Yes, I'm just want.
Is this for vote or is this for discussion? I don't see any of the vote stuff in
It's
here.
not up for vote.
Right, I inquired about that earlier, is the only reason, Julian. So I'm confused what we're,
It is, it's up for a vote. There's just not a proposed motion, but it is up for a vote.
thank you, thanks for
So
clarification.
at this time, yeah, let's take public comment, please.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, public comment?
Jane Myers?
Hi, Dane Myers, 10925 Southwest 186 Circle, Dunnellon. Probably over 20 years ago, a bunch of people in the community worked with the city because we recognized what a spectacular piece of property Nine Island Cove was. And we applied for a grant through the state. And unfortunately, we did not get the grant. And we felt like it was an opportunity that was probably gone forever. I'm astounded that the opportunity exists to get this property. That was before the library was built, and the terminus of Pennsylvania Avenue could have been the Dunnellon Public Library on a riverfront piece of property. The two schools expressed an interest in using that property also for various activities. Ellie Schiller of the Felburn Foundation told me she'd give us $150,000 towards doing some things back in there. There's just abundant opportunities there, and I don't think any of them have to necessarily happen right now, but I think to preserve that opportunity for the future, I really would encourage you all to pursue this possibility. And in that note, you know, I'm getting older. I may never see anything happen down there, but just knowing that someday this community can have perhaps a beautiful park at the end of Pennsylvania, end of our main street, I think just is a huge opportunity that we shouldn't let pass. It's one of those what I consider to be a legacy moment that y'all can make something that reaches far into the future. And I would encourage you all to do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dane.
Sandra Marafino.
We have a few slides to show you. Randy's going to set it up. Sandra Marafino, 19544 Southwest 82nd Place Road, Dunnellon. Jan had mentioned how wide, this is the entrance as you go through River Drive, and you'll pass a sign that says dead end, but continue past it, and this is open, and how wide it is for parking on both sides. You'll notice also how shady it is. The whole park is shaded. We got a little hot lately, so if you want a place to walk that's cooler, this is where you go. Okay, next one. You can see 3 people are walking, and again, the width of the roadway here. These are the paths that you can take down that's closer to the River Drive area. The one on the left leads you downhill. And when people say we don't have hills, you know, we have a hill there. So if you want some exercise, it's a good place for exercise. Again, there's hemlocks, there's oaks, there's pine trees. This is, as you get toward the river, you again see how well the paths are lined with leaves and just, you know, open, easy, nothing to obstruct your walking. Here's the glimpse of the river, and this is more toward the northern end of it. And in the background, you can sort of see a structure. There are several houses there. They cleaned it out a little bit, but as Jan said, there are not any no trespassing signs there. If you drive all the way through there, you'll come out on the corner in both Springs of Cherokee and Calatka Drive, and then head up to 40. This is one of the live oaks. They have a number of beautiful live oaks on the property. As we walk along the river, and we are fortunate to walk with the Southwest Water Management District, you hear tufted titmice, downy woodpeckers, red-bellied woodpeckers, white-eyed vireos. We found some beautiful hawk feathers. It's just a great place to see. And now here's the river, the Withlacoochee River. But beyond this, we're going to show you some of the coves. Here's a double-crested cormorant. 9 island coves. Mary Ann Ermatinger and I kayaked in some of the coves, and we couldn't believe how beautiful they were, how big they were. And there were fisher people in there. So here's another view of another of the cove. Next one, another cove. And you notice the abutment in the middle of the river. If you can do the next slide, you say, what is this doing in the middle of the river? This was part of the Seaboard Coastline Railway that carried phosphate. And it went from one side of the Withlacoochee River across this abutment, and in the next slide, you'll see that it went right up into Nine Island Cove up the hill. We have one more slide to show you. Just to give you an idea, this is one of the coves, how beautiful it is. You don't hear any traffic. And my husband Paul envisioned maybe a boardwalk. You could sit, you could relax, you could fish. It's a place for you to take your grandchildren, your family when they come for picnics, for holidays. It's a beautiful, beautiful park. Thank you.
Susan Gilliland?
I didn't sign up. Somebody signed you. Oh, sorry. My bad. Dennis Jones? I just signed it.
Dennis Jones, 9129 Southwest 190th Avenue Road. I don't live in the city of Dunnellon, but I live in the greater Dunnellon area. Owned property here for 50 years and been a full-time resident for the last 13. I really wasn't going to speak on this issue, but this last weekend my wife and I had an opportunity to return to Pinellas County to an event, and it just reminded me what it was like to be back there, the most densely populated county in all of Florida with 1 million people, Tampa Bay area with over 3 million people, traffic like Crowlite every 200 yards. Man, I was happy to get that thing over with and head back home. So in 2 hours, we're back here in a little area called Paradise in this Dunnellon area. We have a lot of friends that come up here to ride horses on the equestrian trail, or bike or hike, or swim, or underwater photography, paddleboard, kayak, swim, tube, boat, fish. As a matter of fact, several years ago, when you came up 41, there used to be a sign there that says Dunnellon, Bass Capital of the World. I don't know what that sign is now, but it used to be there. They were referring to not only Lake Russo, but the Withlacoochee and the Rainbow. And I'm just here to ask you to give some good support. I've been here long enough to see this council make a lot of bad decisions, in my opinion, and now you have an opportunity to make a good decision. The previous council has already gone ahead and responded favorably in Tallahassee. Their recommendation was taken up by the Florida Forever Board. It's now in the package of things to be considered. And what we're asking for this council to do is to reassure the Florida Forever people that this council is still interested in trying to protect this natural resource. I mean, when I see a natural resource, not only does it have the historical value of the town of Dunnellon, but it has all the factors of why people come here that I just mentioned. Birding, tubing, hiking, kayaking. It's a gem in the rough, to say the least. It's on the favorable list right now, commingled with some other things. But as we go to the delegation meeting on September 13th, and some people speak, we want to make our delegation united that we want Florida Forever moved up on that list so it's favorably responded to, and I'm confident it will be in this fiscal year. Do the right thing and support this project. Thank you.
I don't have anyone else signed up, and I don't have anyone on here.
All right.
Hands up.
Oh, there we go. I signed up. Yeah, even if you didn't sign up, we take hands. Bill, you're on.
Bill Bibber, 9552 Southwest 192nd Court Road. I'd like to talk about the vision of the city of Dunnellon. We don't have time to do that. So I gave you a handout about that, as why this makes sense in terms of...
You speak into the mic. Thanks.
All right? How's that? So I'm not going to talk about the vision of the park. I think you know how I feel about that. I'm a park person. I spent my life doing this. But I wanted to give you some details, and I've handed out some of this in the last week, so you might have had a chance to look through it. I know the city is concerned about the cost, which I understand that. But you have an opportunity to do a project here that is going to cost you, if not nothing, very close to nothing. I had a chance to talk to Deborah Burr from the Division of Public Lands in Florida. And I'd just like to go through a few things that I've already given to you. You might be aware of them. What this is not. If you remember the Blue Run project, that's the Florida Communities Trust program. That's a completely different program where recreation is a priority in the Florida Communities Trust, connecting parks to communities. This is a different program. The Florida Forever Straight program is a conservation program. So the requirements that the city would have to do this are minimal. Maybe nothing. The only thing you need is to sign a letter. And a letter does not have to be an extensive letter. All you need is one sentence. City of Dunnellon accepts management responsibility for Dunnellon Code. That's it. You're not accepting a project list like you did with, the previous council did with Blue Run Park. This is the application, just to give you an idea of the difference in the two programs. This is an application that Paul and I did to purchase Blue Run Park. So we had to do an extensive application to get it on the list. Then we had to do a management plan, which some of you are familiar with this. It's a very detailed management plan, which has, I think, served the city very well over the last 15 years. This is the management plan for a Florida Forever project. It's an online fill-in-the-blank form. It's a minimal form, which RRC could help you with that. I said I'd never do a management plan, but I would be happy to help you with this. So it's a very simple online form. And what is it that you don't have to do? You don't have to do facilities. You already have parking, as Sandra described. The initiation is not by the city, it's by the property owners. The owners of the property would appeal, they would contact Florida Forever, and they would be the initiation of it. We still would have to have funding, we'd have to get approval for funding, as Dennis Jones said. But it's initiated by the seller. So again, the city doesn't really have to do anything. The management plan is very simple. What is going to be the cost of this? The trails are already there. And I'll come back to what is the resource value, which I have to talk about that a little bit. It's 49 acres. It's 2,700 feet of river frontage. Dunnellon is a two-river city. Where is access to the river? It's two boat ramps. Blue Run Park really does not have access to the river. We don't have access. This gives you a half a mile of river access to the Withlacoochee River. So people can fish and recreate and kayak and do all the things that people like to do on the water. Water is really important to the vision of Dunnellon for the future. So, that's it. I got to most of it. We just need a letter, one sentence, that's all you need, and it can move forward. That's it. Also, the city, just a final point, the city is not going to own this. This would be, the property would be owned by Florida Forever, by the state of Florida. It's a 50-year lease, that's how it works. So you're leasing the property from the state of Florida. All you need to do is agree to accept the management.
Thank you, Bill.
Raven Siegfried.
Raven Siegfried, 18337 Southwest 102 Street Road. So what everyone always says to me is, how do we get young people to stay in Dunnellon? And to illustrate this, I'm going to share an anecdote with you from last week. My friends and I went to Orlando, and we're standing up high looking out over the city, and we see all this construction and like the cranes and the buildings. And my friend turns to me and she says, they really shouldn't be doing this. I really don't like seeing this. And this is what they want to do to Dunnellon. This is what Dunnellon's going to look like in a few years. And that's really upsetting to me. So a lot of the time people are like, oh, we need to build more to make Dunnellon something that young people will want to live in. But that isn't true. Because the young people of Dunnellon want to live in Dunnellon. And I think Nine Island Cove is a really great opportunity for you all to provide the young people of Dunnellon with a town that we would like to live in. If we could have more green space, that would also offer young people something that we can do in town, so we don't have to go out of town to have a day out together. We would be able to spend our money in Dunnellon instead of, after going somewhere, go to a restaurant outside of town, we'd be able to spend that money in Dunnellon. So I just want to ask you all to, if you really are sincere in your desire to make Dunnellon a place that young people will want to stay, having Nine Island Cove be a park is a great way to do that. My friends couldn't be here tonight because they work, but I'm here on behalf of the young people to say that this is what we want. Thank you.
Thank you.
Member Serena?
Member Serena, 11426 Henry Drive, Dunnellon. It's so refreshing to stand up here and talk about something that we've been working on for almost 3 years.
You just speaking to the mic.
Yes.
Thanks.
So I want to talk tonight about the possibilities of Dunnellon and the what-ifs of Dunnellon, instead of operating from a fear point of how are we going to manage it? How are we going to afford it? It's time for Dunnellon to win. It's time that we understand that we've all been brought here together for a reason. I mean, of all the places that Mr. Dunn could have rented when he was building his home, he was put in the middle of Nine Island Cove. We rallied for that property 3 years ago. Of all the places in the world I could have moved to from South Florida, I chose Dunnellon. You came from South Florida. You're right in the middle. I mean, the universe has put us all together for a reason. We're here to protect us. We love this area. We have children. I have 4- and 5-year-old little boys. I want to raise them here. We all have legacy properties that we want to give to our children. This makes me very emotional. It's so, Dunnellon needs a voice. Our children and the wildlife need a voice. Please do what's right.
Thank you, Amy.
I have someone on Zoom.
Okay.
If you have your hand raised in Zoom and you would like to speak, you have to unmute yourself.
I did do that. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is Roseanne Paula. I am a resident of Dunnellon. I live within the city limits. Jan covered, maybe you can take up some for the 3 minutes for me. I'm hearing, the biggest fear that I'm hearing about this park is how much is it going to cost us as taxpayers? And from what I understand, this is going to be a very low-maintenance park. It's not going to be asphalt, there's not going to be bathroom facilities. From what I understand, there's just going to be clearing of land, removing fallen trees, adding some benches, and just keeping it in its most natural state. And if that's true, Jan, I would like you to back me up on that, and that's all that I need to say. And but also, the comments tonight are phenomenal. If that doesn't move the council, I don't know what will. So thank you all for being here tonight. I could not be there. Thanks.
I don't have anyone else.
All right.
Bert Eno called me this afternoon. He is not well. He has handed you all a letter, and I would like to just make 2 paragraphs, short paragraphs of it, public record. And
Excuse me. We had some discussions recently, in the recent past, about reading comments into public record, that they can be submitted and they are made for public record, but that there then became a time when everyone was presenting written information that had to be read into the record, and we had made some limits at that time. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Okay, so I just want to say that I received Mr. Eno's letter, and whether or not it's read into public comment, I think, I just want to be careful because we set a precedent, and I don't want next meeting to have 10 things to be read into public comment because we've already stated that that's not the procedure.
I'd like to counter that with, this is a public comment that was going to be read here by Dr. Bert Eno. He is not well, and I think just out of an act of kindness, to consider that these people out here might want to hear what Bert Eno was going to say. So I'm asking for your special consideration on this.
Do we vote? What do we do?
Can we take a vote on it? Let's take a vote on it.
2 paragraphs, Jan?
2 paragraphs, shorties.
I'm good.
I'm good.
I'm good.
Okay. And again,
And Julianne's point's well taken for the future, though.
I
I'm not
understand, sir,
dismissing her.
yes.
Actually, I'll talk to Andy. Sorry, Jan.
2 years ago, Paul Marafino, who I think everybody here knows, devised a scheme to get the property on the Florida Forever list by treating it as an amendment to the Rainbow River Corridor project. Okay, I'm going to go down to 4th paragraph. This is meant to be a long-term park plan to be developed only when funds become available. And then I'm going to go down to the very last paragraph. What is being proposed by Councilwoman Covich is only that the city get state representatives on board with support for conserving and protecting Nine Island Cove and its wildlife. The legislature this year and probably next year has influenced substantial state expenditures for conservation causes. It seems to me you, council, have nothing to lose by taking the step down this road. Thank you. Again, it's Dr. Burden.
Council comment? I'll begin if nobody else would like to.
You go ahead, I got a lot.
Okay, because unfortunately, I'm going to rain on everybody's parade. The management prospectus is the only official document that I can find in public records when I made the request, and it's was signed on March 2nd, 2021, Nine Island Cove Management Perspective, final signed by the past mayor, includes the following. So here's what we are looking at when we're talking about the costs and the burden for the city. The city of Dunnellon will develop trails, benches, a river boardwalk, a picnic pavilion, a parking area to allow access to the park. This property is in the Dunnellon Community Redevelopment Agency area, and funding for grant matches or projects can be made available from this source of revenue. So the official letters committing CRA money. The revenue generating potential is limited. To help with maintenance costs, the city of Dunnellon may choose to have a parking fee, a franchise for a food truck, a fee for a pavilion rental for larger groups. The timetable for implementing the intended uses of this project, this is important, would begin as soon as it is acquired. The first phase will be to extend sidewalks and to modify the entrance into the park and to develop woodland trails next to the coves. Other improvements, including a boardwalk, pavilion, benches, historic kiosk, will evolve over a 5-year period. When a detailed management plan is developed, river access will be considered. Also to be considered will be a kiosk to memorize the history of the phosphate discovery. The Dunnellon Police will periodically patrol the park. The Dunnellon Public Services staff will do routine maintenance on the park and hire contractors on the occasional need for larger projects. Operation and maintenance costs for the community activities and passive recreation will be provided by the City of Dunnellon CRA funds and general revenue funding. The City of Dunnellon will assume responsibility for managing the park utilizing existing staff. City personnel will maintain the park features and facilities, and the Public Services Department, or Public Works, will monitor and conduct natural resource activities. So what we have is we have people verbally saying there's no cost. We have people emailing saying there's no cost. But what's in front of us is an official signed document that says we're going to have all kinds of costs. Now I'm going to go right to my comments here. FGUA already protects most of this property by not allowing any building. So there's not going to be any building on this because in the fall, most falls when the big rains come, it floods. The above, this also does not include any ordinances to protect the parks and visitors. With the Blue Run Park, we had to create an ordinance so that the police had a vehicle to enforce the rules, and because of the issues in Blue Run Park, they were not able to enforce the rules, needed to enforce the rules, so we had to create an ordinance. That ordinance cost the taxpayers $25,000, $24,900 some dollars. So once again, this stuff does not come without money strings. Something else that bothers me is, I get on the tax rolls and I look at who owns property out there. Some of the loudest proponents of this are in conflict of interest as they own pieces of this Nine Island Cove property. All you gotta do is go on the Marion County Tax website. So when I see stuff like that, it bothers me. We're all talking about how we want to bring more people in to see this park. I don't know how bringing more people in equates to keeping the wildlife there. More people are going to chase wildlife out, et cetera, et cetera. Any position that says this will bring the city more revenue just isn't correct. What we discovered from getting up on this council and doing budgets is, due to the state and county formulas that use the census population in the equation, basically all tax dollars are sent to the county and the state. The state and the county have formulas to send money back to different municipalities. Part of that formula is based on census population. Dunnellon's in a unique situation because we only have 2,000 people on a census population, but because of the tourist attraction with the rivers and being a byway from 41 and 40, we actually get the wear and tear of tens of thousands of people. But we only get revenue back for 2,000 people. So we're in an issue right now of we're not sustainable with the wear and tear we get versus the tax dollars we receive back from the county. The other thing I'd like everybody to understand is I went through and I gathered up and I kept it way low. I kept it conservative. I didn't want anybody to say, oh, you're trying to cherry pick and make your own point. I'm just looking for facts. I'm looking to make it accurate. I'll go through the budget and what we have in the budget right now, and I can cherry pick items and inflate this number, I promise you, but that's not what happened. I kept it minimal. Annually, the City of Dunnellon taxpayers pay $235,000 for park maintenance and improvements. It's in the budget, it's in budget line items, it's public record, anybody can take a look at it. My other issue is we're experiencing this in Blue Run Park right now. As other communities are experiencing and presently happening in Blue Run Park, these issues, these areas tend to draw vagrants and other risky type people that put the neighborhoods and the very school that we're saying we would like to have the children be in, it puts all these people at risk. We're pulling tents weekly out of Blue Run Park from vagrants and such, and to me this is just another area. As far, I mean, go back there, it is beautiful. I've been back there many times. But when I look at the months of May, June, July, August, and September, here in the subtropics, it's not a very nice place to be in. It's It's too hot, too humid. I just don't see many people going in there. And in the fall, most of the time, many of the times in the fall is flooded when we get the big rains. My last comment is, we got to learn to research and make decisions based on the facts, not emotion, not on rhetoric, and make decisions on that rather than ferreting out the details, ferreting out what our issues are with what we already have, and figuring out ways to not let that happen again. And I just don't see, I hear all of the, and see all of the good side, but when you go down and you have to manage something or make a decision, you got to make a pro list and a con list. I just don't see the pro list looking better than the con list based on our experiences that we're having right now and based on experiences when reach out and take a look at other parks and communities and the issues that they're having. St. Augustine is actually a great example. Unfortunately, 3 years ago, St. Augustine was a wonderful place to go to. Now, their park is completely filled with homeless and vagrants, all the way down to shopping areas and everything. And I just don't think that we want to invite that for the Bot Springs people, for the middle school that's right next to it, and the road that leads there, Riverview Drive, you can barely, cars go by each other right now, and we're talking about sending traffic down there. With that, I'll entertain all the boos, but that's the other side of the coin that I think that needs to be thought out before. I can't do it, Bill.
Could I make just a couple of comments?
Next.
Only one time.
Only one time, yes.
You don't get to speak again.
I understand it.
At least not till everybody
Okay.
else is smoking.
I've done a little research, okay, about that development plan. It was prospectus written up by Rainbow River Conservation. Rainbow River Conservation is not going to be managing this park. So if you just, that development plan was a prospectus. It was an idea. The state of Florida, DEP, is not going to hold us to that. There's no timeline that Florida DEP through Florida Forever with their funding is going to hold us to. It was a collection of ideas by Paul Marafino representing Rainbow River Conservation. It was not the city's management plan. And if you look on the page, who submitted this plan? That, I have that proof.
It's signed by Bill White.
That plan-
It's signed by Bill
It was
White.
signed by Bill White, who's no longer represents this council.
But that
So
doesn't
it was signed- That's why we have another letter.
Point of order.
That's,
Point of order.
no point of order.
One person, Jan, can speak at a time.
We have a letter here going to be signed by a new mayor with a new council. That's why we're here today.
One
That
person.
prospectus
Amen.
plan that was submitted, this council does not, there's nothing legal. Would you like to explain it? We do not legally have to abide
Okay.
by that management plan. I have
Yeah.
checked on that. You don't have to abide by that. It was a bunch collection of ideas by Rainbow River Conservation.
Chairperson Tim, I'm
I
calling
got
a
you.
point of order.
Yes, ma'am.
Because it's one person to speak at a time,
I got you.
and
Thank you, Jan.
and you
We
can't
got
have
it.
a
Thank you.
second round
I'm
of
done.
speaking until
I'm done.
everyone has spoken.
Absolutely
I'm
correct.
done speaking today.
Absolutely
Thank
correct.
you.
Rex?
In listening to you say prospectus, that was the one question is I wanted to ask is I've heard the Florida system that they're working to get this done through, that's going to be managing it. They are not bound by this prospectus, right?
We don't know, that's the problem. We don't know. We have people saying,
We need to
Sorry,
comment
sorry.
and we need to move on to the next
No,
person.
because what I'm trying to ascertain
Questions.
is, I've listened to a lot of people come up and say that under this Florida statute, or the Florida program, that they do it, that it's minimal, and then you're reading a prospectus that came out that says that we have to do all this, so I'm wondering, so my question is is that going to mandate what we do? And if they're totally separate, then, and if the land goes into management by the state of Florida, and then we're not tied to this prospectus, then there is no cost in it. So what I'm trying to find out is,
I'll be
are we-
speaking to that on my comment.
Yeah, okay. So that is my question, is are we being bound by something that doesn't apply to what we're trying to do over here?
And that is my question also. We don't have that information.
That's my question.
Correct. Wally? Over the next one, Julianne. Julianne?
Okay. If y'all will bear with me, I went through a 5-hour surgery yesterday, and I'm struggling just to sit here. But I wrote down some things that bother me. And I'm going to try to read this. Question: why is 9 Island Cove property now all of a sudden a top priority of RRC? Question: why now? Why hasn't this council heard this very urgent matter on 9 Island until Monday, August the 7th? Why was the issue dropped on us in a council meeting on a Monday night, and we were told to sign a letter basically by September the 13th? Personally, I see no urgency to do anything with 9 Island at this time, when most of the residents in Dunnellon don't much care about 9 Island, and most of them couldn't find it if they walked around Dunnellon. Unfortunately, the Dunnellon residents are very upset about the condition of the roads and streets. Just to remind you, in case you don't know or have forgotten, I was in the group that wanted to invest money to get this put on the Florida Forever list. At that time, our group wanted 9 Island Cove to be added to this list, so in the future, if and when funds were made available by the state, those funds might go to purchase this property. We were told at that time no funding commitments would be made on the city part of the city to fund anything at that time, only when the state funds were made available and approved by the city that the city may want to fund a small portion of the cost up to 10%. We just wanted to make sure that the property was not being developed by a developer. To my knowledge, the only piece of the property in 9 Island that it's sold since this all started was one of the members of this group. To my knowledge, there has been no demand from any outside developer to buy any of this property, mostly unusable land. Please note that the fact that the city of Dunnellon currently has no funds available to purchase any of this, so why the rush now? Will the state not have any money next year or the following year? I don't think so. Dunnellon might have the funding in the future, but they don't have it now. The city can't afford an obligation to take on more management responsibilities at this time. Please also note that the current council is working as we speak to dispose of vacant property that we currently own. Also, the city is supposed to be managing Blue Run Park, quote, a passive park, City Beach, and the city boat ramp. Currently does a very poor job in managing all these properties with a very limited staff we have. Now we want to add another 49 acres. I don't see how that'll happen. I personally believe the biggest issue the city will have with purchasing another passive park is the cost. The city has been told many times since 2007 that Blue Run Park is a passive park and will not cost the city anything. Flash forward to today. Over the years, this statement has been turned out to be not true. The city of Dunnellon currently faces a huge cost of over $210,000 to build a bathroom at Blue Run Park, and that cost could be exceeded with major overruns and also the cost of any future repairs and maintenance to that bathroom. So Blue Run Park was not free, and the cost in the future going forward will not be free. I don't believe this council wants to be put in this box again and be told that 9 Island is a passive park and won't cost anything. Sorry, that dog won't hunt. Then I got something else to say. During this week, and I'm like Tim, this commitment that was signed 2 years ago by Bill White says we're obligated to do anything. This is the only thing out there that tells the city what we're supposed to be doing with this, okay? And it hadn't been amended. And I think it's funny. This week, I've gotten 3 different things telling me how we're going to change this, okay? First, it was going to be we're going to buy it. Then, no, the state's going to buy it. No, why don't we sell Blue Run? This was the latest one from one of my council persons. Why don't we just sell Blue Run Park or give it back to Marion County, take the $220,000 for the bathroom, and we'll spend that money on the park. Now I'm hearing we don't have to do anything. The problem is we don't know what we're going to do, okay? My whole thing is I think this thing ought to be tabled. Everybody sit down, get their ducks in a row, and bring this council something that makes sense. Right now, I don't know which way we're going, okay, and I'm sorry. And I was one of the people that want this, and I want this. But right now, we can't manage another 49 acres with what we got. And I'm going to say something real blunt right now, and I hope you can handle it. Most of the members of the RRC don't live in Dunnellon, and I'm getting tired of y'all telling us how to run this town. Sorry. That's all.
Julianne.
Okay, so I think that, in summary from everyone else's comments, we are not well informed. We have a lot of questions. We don't have the information that we need. I learned recently that the prospectus written by Bill White in 2021 actually does not apply. I would agree that this really came to our attention on the 7th of August, and within the last 48 hours, I've gotten a ton of information about how perhaps we filed the wrong kind of application for the size of the property, that there's much better options for how to work this if we go back and call the state and apply properly. So I'll tell you, within 48 hours, I haven't even had time to digest what we need to do to fix the first application so that we can submit a better application that on its face looks hopeful. So I also want to say that the city and these 5 people on the council are not the decision makers for 9 Island Cove. It's not going to be these 5 people who decide whether or not the land is conserved. The city does not have to be a player. The city does not have to be the management body. It could be a nonprofit. It could be someone else. So I want everybody out there who's maybe hearing some things that they don't want to hear or that they don't like to know that there's more than one way to skin the cat. And these 5 people are not in charge of making the decision about the conservation of the land. So RRC works really hard. I continue to encourage all the landowners of 9 Island Cove and everybody out there in the community to work your magic and learn about it, because there's lots of great options and it does not rest with the city. We don't have to sign on to the management of this land for it to be conserved. There's other options, but I can't speak with real conviction about it because I only learned about it 48 hours ago and I would have to make the calls and do the homework. So I think that this letter that we're talking about tonight, which is our vote, is not a make it or break it for this property to be on the Florida Forever list. The contents of the letter I do not agree with. The letter says about the dog park and everybody, it talks about all these things that we're going to do and all these financial commitments that we're going to make. And I know that none of you were at the budget meeting that we have recently had 6 times over, but this has not been put into the budget. And this council has committed to doing projects that are budgeted beforehand. So we don't even have any idea about how this could fit in, if it could work. I'm hopeful that it could work, especially with some of the new information that I've gotten after Bill Bibbert did a lot of homework, very intelligent, very trustworthy man. But with only 48 hours of the information, I feel like we need more time for fact-finding. We need to find the facts ourselves. The staff needs to help us do that. We need to go back and look at the budget to see what the real numbers are. I just don't think any facts have been brought about this. We've been talking about this for a week to 10 days. So we don't have the information that we need. I don't agree with the contents of the current letter. And I'll just finish by reiterating that the conservation of this land does not rest with Dunnellon City Council.
Okay. Can we,
I'm not going to buy anything here.
can we have a motion for a vote? Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we did.
I'm not buying anything.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did prior to. Yeah, it's all good.
Okay.
So calling for a vote. All those in favor?
Oh, we need
To do what?
we need a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. We need a motion.
Okay, before we call for the vote for the motion, so what we're saying is, just so I'm clear, is that I get the feeling that a lot of people are for this, but we want to get more information so that we don't walk into a really bad situation and be committed to something.
That's where I'm at.
Because
We don't have enough facts.
I was at the meeting on the 7th when this came up, so it's been like 10 days.
Right, exactly,
So,
exactly. Okay, so do we have a motion for the mayor to sign the letter of support for state funding for 9 Island Cove property?
I'll make the motion.
Somebody to second, then we vote.
We have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion that we take the vote.
Okay. Now, all in favor?
Aye.
We have one in favor. All opposed? No? No? 4 opposed.
Mandy, could we please put on the next workshop agenda that could you revisit this on a workshop agenda?
You want this on your September workshop?
Yes, please,
Right.
September workshop agenda.
Okay.
Can you clarify what we'll title that?
Yeah, I would say gauging the interest of learning more about 9 Island Cove options so that we could possibly develop an information gathering strategy if the council was in favor of that.
Yeah, or just explore the options of how to acquire or not acquire. Because I got 3 different options in the last 2 days. I don't know what we're doing.
To me, it's like any project. We need to
You need to check.
get your project checklist done.
We'll come up with some wording that you all can be happy
Yeah,
with. I'm sure.
Okay. Item 8, extensions of agreement AGR 2018-31, wood resource recovery and agreement AGR 2018-32, Grubbs Emergency Services for disaster recovery and debris removal services. Any public comment on that?
Would you like me to speak to it first?
Please, yeah.
So in 2018, I sent you all an email yesterday with all the backup for this because it was not ADA compliant. The city did prepare an RFP, an RFQ back in 2018 for disaster recovery and debris removal services in the event that we have a natural disaster here that would require those services. We appointed a primary and a secondary provider, the primary being Wood Resource Recovery and the secondary being Grubbs Emergency Services. The agreements, I believe it was Section 4 of both agreements from 2018, which are identical, that allows for 2, at the end of the 5-year term, which would end on August 13th, 2 additional 1-year extensions of the contract before we would have to go out to bid again. So both companies have submitted a letter of interest to extend the contracts for 1 year. They did provide updated rate sheets because it's been 5 years. So we're just asking that you authorize the mayor to sign the one-year extensions for both contracts.
Can I ask a clarification question? When I read these, what do we do, public comment or us first?
You can go ahead and
Okay.
just take public comment before you vote.
What this looks like to me is these contracts are just so we have these extensions are just so we have a contract in place in case we have an emergency. We don't have to have an emergency and then now we're scrambling to get contracts in place. There's no cost to us unless we have an emergency and call upon these people. Is that correct?
That is correct. And the majority of the cost in the event of a declared emergency would be reimbursed by FEMA. So we don't use them unless we have a natural disaster, and then we submit to FEMA for reimbursement, which is 75% reimbursement, and then we get 12.5% from the state. So we're out of pocket 12.5%
Okay.
when we experience a natural disaster.
Got it.
If we meet FEMA's threshold.
Sure.
There's a certain dollar threshold.
Okay.
It was at one point $3,000. If your disaster costs were $3,000, you bore the 100% of it. So
Gotcha.
I don't know what that threshold is currently. So that's just what we deal with in any
Sure.
disaster
Sure.
and
Yeah,
trying to get money.
that makes sense. Okay. Public comments? Anybody in Zoom land?
No, sir.
Okay. Council comments?
No, I'm in favor of it because I know in Miami, we do have a lot of hurricanes. And the hardest thing to find is somebody to clean up
Right.
the place because everybody wants.
Right. So, you don't want to be trying to figure out your contract. Okay, we have a motion?
I propose that we authorize the mayor to sign a one-year extension of agreement ARG 2018-31 Woods Resource Recovery and Agreement ARG 2018-32 Grubbs Emergency Services for Disaster Recovery and Debris Removal Services.
Second?
Second.
Okay. We'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Ms. Covey, were you an aye?
Aye. Sorry.
That's all good. Unanimous, it passes. All right. Okay, number 9, ADT intrusion and fire system for Public Works. Chad, you want to take this one?
Yeah, we talked about this. I submitted the two quotes, which AET was the lower of the quote, but the fire system they give us is not an accurate quote because the amount of stuff they had listed on it, pole stations, et cetera, everything we don't need. So I gave them what we needed, and I'm waiting on a correct quote on the fire system, which would be much lower because we don't need 80% of the stuff they had on commercial structure. The intrusion system is correct. The fire system is not quite correct because the amount is high for what they quoted us. I have reached out to them, I just have not received everything they take off the bill.
Right.
If council would like, you can, there is a proposed motion, but you can, it's just a proposed motion. If you want to make a motion to approve the intrusion system only and not the fire system, and have staff bring that back to you with updated information, you can go ahead and move on the intrusion system only with ADT.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was hoping we could do. Okay, so the ADT intrusion system is basically $2,500 for the equipment and then $113 a month for the service. Johnson Controls for the same intrusion system is almost $7,300. The reason for the huge difference is a lot of the ADT system is already in Public Works, so there's not as much to install, et cetera. So it's much lower on that end. Now, Johnson Controls is $90 a month for the service versus $113. But when you run out the numbers, it's going to take quite a while to overrun that $5,000 gap between the two for the monthly service. I guess I'm not sure how we're doing council discussion. I'm with the ADT intrusion system, and then wait and see what the fire system comes back in and it looks like myself.
I agree.
Okay, so we're ready for, to make a motion?
Public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry, public comment? Okay, yeah, you guys will get Wally back next week. Go ahead and put up with me.
You did great. I move that we accept the ADT quote in the amount of $9,680.
The motion would
Right.
be to accept the quote for the intrusion system only
Right.
with installation of $2,471 and monthly monitoring of $113 a month.
Correct.
Okay.
I second.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, we call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Covey?
Aye.
All right, passes unanimous, and fire intrusion will be brought back to us. I'm sorry, fire system will be brought back to us at a later time? Great, thank you. Cool, thank you, Chad. Okay, item 10, resolution RES 2023-15 surplus lots in Dunnellon Heights. Mandy, you want to give us the gist on that?
Yes, sir. The city does own 2 lots in Dunnellon Heights. It's, here we have the parcel ID numbers, lot 248 and lot 358. One lot is .24 acres, the other is .2 acres, and the fair market value listed on the property appraiser's website is $11,000 each. It appears that these lots were deeded to the city at some point in the past as a result of some sort of assessment, and they've just been sitting there. There was some discussion by council and Vice Mayor Inskeep to look at the city-owned properties and see what we would be able to dispose of. So in order to do that, you would have to surplus these lots, and the method of disposal would be to list them with a real estate deed for sale. And Andrew may be able to speak more how that would be handled. We've determined that they are not in the CRA, so there's no special advertising requirements there. I think it's just as easy as listing them with a real estate agent and seeing what kind of offers we get and selling.
Do we have any public comment? Okay. Council comments?
I have one comment. In the past, sometimes we have hired a realtor, and that realtor, the agreement was whether he sold the property or not, he got paid. I want to make sure if we sell this property, they don't get paid until we get paid.
Agree. Absolutely agree.
Okay. That's the only comment I have.
Do we have an agreement with the realtor yet, or we don't?
No.
We do.
Okay.
Do we need to put that, your wish for that in the resolution before we do it? I mean, before, you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We would have to bring back a contract with a real estate agent for you to approve before
Right.
listing it.
That's what I wanted
So
to
that'd be a whole, that would be included in that contract.
Okay, good. That's
So,
all, that's all
I
I
just want to
want.
clarify that.
Sure, absolutely. So what we're approving here is
Just getting rid of it.
to let staff move
Right
forward
now.
and contact a realtor.
Right.
Right now, what you're doing is you're declaring them as surplus and
Okay.
providing for a method of disposal.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
Andrew, did you have anything to add?
No, I don't. I think that the council has discretion in, well, I guess I do. The council should have, some wide discretion in disposal of the property. That being said, if I recall correctly, Mandy, these were deeded to the city via plat?
No, these are not the same ones that you and I are.
Not those?
No.
Okay.
It's not
Yeah.
those.
If
These
it's
are.
outside of the CRA, and I think we reviewed the ordinance together, they have discretion to sell on a city-initiated sale, wide range of latitude of how you'd like to proceed once it's listed as surplus.
All right, so do we have a motion to proceed?
I'll make a motion to
Need a motion to read by title only.
I move that Res 2023-15 be read by title only.
I'll second. Okay, we call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Covey?
Aye. Resolution number RES 2023-15, a resolution of the City of Dunnellon, Florida, declaring property owned by the city located within the Dunnellon Heights subdivision as surplus and providing for disposal thereof.
So to go for a vote, we have to have discussion separately.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve?
I move that.
I make a motion that we approve.
Second? Is this somebody second?
Second.
All right. Call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, so number 10, unanimous. Goes through. Number 11, Resolution RES 2023-13, updating credit card surcharges. Jan, you want to bring us up to speed there?
Yes, sir. Council, for the past couple of years, we've been charging a transaction fee for each credit card transaction. We do contract with a third-party processor to process those transactions. We're charged fees by them and as well as the credit card company. And the purpose of this fee was to cover the cost of that service and not make any kind of a profit. Well, after I had done an analysis over the past 10 or 11 months, we are covering more of the costs than we should be, to the tune of a couple $100. So I'm requesting that the fee be increased by 0.5% from 3.2% to 3.7%. My analysis shows that there would still be possibly a little bit the city would be absorbing, but you can't raise it more than we can pay the vendor. So I think we're always going to be maybe in a little bit of a position to cover some costs, but as long as we can minimize that, because it came down to about $8,
Gotcha.
then it works out.
Okay.
The average percentage, for the most part, is between 4% and 5%, so we are still below that.
Gotcha. Public comment? Council comment? Okay. Do we have a motion to read Resolution 2023-13 by title only?
I propose we read by title only. I make a motion.
A second?
Second.
Okay, we'll have a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Yes.
Do we need to wait on Jan?
I just mark it 4-0.
Okay.
Resolution number 2023-13, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Dunnellon, Florida, updating the city's credit debit card surcharge, providing for conflict, severability, and effective date.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve Resolution RES 2023-13 be approved?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. We'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None? All right. So number 11 goes through. All right. Item 12, fiscal year 22-23 third quarter general fund budget update. You're on, Jan.
Okay. Council, this is your third quarter budget update as of June. 75% of the budget is complete at this point in time. We'll start out with revenues. I'll highlight, the big ones. On line 2, licenses and permits. Projecting that we come in at about $80,000 over budget. Business tax receipts, permits and permit penalties have been greater than anticipated. So we're doing quite well in that area. The next is federal grants. We've received our reimbursements for Hurricane Ian from prior year expenses. So you're seeing a $25,000 revenue boost to our bottom line for this year. We're going to have an additional $600 come in soon, and that will close out this hurricane project reimbursement with FEMA. The last item I really want to focus on is your miscellaneous revenue on line 15. I've projected that to come in at about $193,000, primarily due to interest income that we're now, recognizing. And we've been offered some higher rates for some CDs that are coming due soon, and we're going to just keep taking advantage of the interest rate environment as it progresses.
Good.
But hopefully it'll still keep going up a little bit. I know that's not good for the economy because it shows we're not controlling inflation, but it is good for our bottom line. If you have any questions, I projected. Now, what I have done is the one last thing on line number 16, the transfers from reserve. That's for capital projects. I've still kept those at being primarily fully funded. I know we only have 2 months left to this year, but this is as of June. That can fluctuate, that can change, and mostly it's purchase of equipment at this point. So I have not reduced that, but that will probably come in a lot less.
Right, okay.
So I'm looking at ending the year actually a little bit over in revenue at 4.8 million versus our budget of 4.7. And these are only my best guesstimates for the most part, because I don't want to reduce a department's budget when they may be able to squeeze in something that maybe they're thinking at any point in time they may not get to.
Sure. It's all good.
Are there any questions? So I think we're doing quite well this year. On to expenses. Again, I'll highlight just a few of the major ones. City Council is, I'm anticipating maybe about $20,000 under budget due to travel. We're not taking advantage of travel opportunities, and you have a contingency fund, which we budget something every year, and that's not really being spent. The next item would be line 23, comprehensive planning and development, which is AKA community development. I'm saying they're going to be in under budget by about $50,000, primarily due to the vacant department head position. Excuse me. On line 28, the police department, $606,000 under budget, and that's primarily due to not moving forward with a new police facility. That's primarily capital funds. The next one would be building inspector department on line 31. Again, that's due to a vacant department head position. On line 34, roads and streets. It's primarily due to the previously vacant department head position, because that was for a little short period of time, and cancellation and pause of capital projects that were budgeted in that department. The last one would be Park and Recreation. Really the same comment. The previously vacant department head position and the cancellation of the beach shade shelter project. So all in all, I'm projecting that we're going to come in with a surplus of about $1 million. It's a combination of the additional revenue we're bringing in as well as the cancellation of the project, so we're not having to take money from reserve to fund these.
The bulk of that is capital projects.
Absolutely it is, yes. And that's usually what it is, every year.
Right.
It's
That's where the big
us not
dollars are.
completing. You know, for example, budgeted in this department this year is the ARPA project, the intersection projects.
Right.
For the Granada and Palmetto Way, I guess.
Yes.
That's fully budgeted in this current year, and we've spent very little on
Right,
it.
right.
So that's gonna be rebudgeted next year.
Okay.
Any questions?
Yeah, I'm going to start out with the last thing you said, the Palmetto Granada intersection project. We had the meeting with Timmy Horn, was his name?
Alan Gary?
Alan Gary, I'm so sorry. He kind of laid out for us where he thought we were going to be. Did you guys get together and figure out the cash flow that we're going to be spending this year based on what Alan Gary told us?
I haven't been involved in anything.
Okay, gotcha, let me get a note then.
And what we have spent, unfortunately, I don't have those figures. Well, yes, I do. Let's see. June. Bear with me 1 second. I can tell you what we've spent as of June. $1,495 on professional services, and that would be Kimley Horn. And so we've spent close to $60,000 of the $921,000 that we've received
Okay, this fiscal year or just overall?
as of June.
Okay.
This fiscal
year, okay. Because I thought when we met with him, he, the way the timeline was, and certain things happened with the engineering and all that of the roads, that we were going to see another bill sometime in this prior to October.
Okay.
So we'll circle back with him and get that information to you.
And we do have the funds.
Right.
We budgeted the full amount, so, and they're available, they're in a reserve, and they stay in the reserve until I get a bill.
Okay.
Then I pull it out and transfer it to pay that bill.
Okay, gotcha. So you're not hurting right now because
no.
we're not giving you any information?
No, not
Okay,
at all.
cool. Okay, I just want to make sure we.
Yeah, and there wouldn't even be a budget amendment
Okay.
that would be needed for that.
I'm going back to item 31, building inspector. Decrease primarily due to vacant department head position. I thought our building inspector is contracted out.
It is, but part of Georgina's salary, since she was over that
Oh, okay.
department, is allocated.
Gotcha.
So the community development manager was allocated over
I'm with
3
you.
departments.
I'm with you.
Community development, building inspector, and CRA.
Yes, right.
So
Okay.
that's where
Gotcha.
that
Okay.
difference is.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
No, that was a good one.
Okay, all right, now. The last thing is just to give you a peek at reserves, what we've got in the bank as of June. And I'm not going to focus on any one in particular, just bottom line. We've got $7.1 million in the bank. I'm very proud of this. This is the best we've been in 19 years.
I'm very proud of it.
So
I think we've done a great job.
if there's anything you want to focus, I've given you definitions as far as what these reserves can be used for. We take them in and out, we pay the bills out of it, but all in all, we're doing good.
Good.
We don't have a lot of discretionary income.
Right.
So my smile is with a bit of a hesitation. We're doing good. What I hear from council as far as your planning, it'll allow for steady cash flow. And I see in the future we can keep building reserves. I've got it in the budget, even just gas tax money is going to go back into reserve because other reserves are funding Chad's needs. So we're able to kind of juggle the pots we take from.
You sent me that message this morning about
Yes, sir.
Brandon. I think Brandon has done a great job. Every time we ask them about rate changes, they met it. I haven't changed what I threw down real quick coming home from the doctor, but I think the 3 months where we go, rates are going up in September if all holds, and we just keep riding it up. And I hate to say that way for the economy, but for us, it's dang good news.
And that was my thought too, but Wally, I thought, okay, I now have someone to kind of bounce this information off of, which I truly appreciate. And what Wally is talking about is Brandon, I called, since we have CDs maturing, I said, okay, what can you do for us? And they're going to give us, in our money market, which does fluctuate, we're going from 3.2 to 4.5%. And a CD, they're going to give us 4% on, I wish I had it in front of me, 4.75 for a 3-month and 4.5 for a 6-month. So we're just going to try and take advantage of what we can and keep turning it over. And I think the main comfort I have is it can be liquidated if we absolutely have a project we need to get involved.
Absolutely.
And so a big thanks to Jen and also to Tim and Wally for all the work you guys have done to try to improve the finances of the city. I think that it's an important thing to say out loud at a public meeting because there's a lot happening behind the scenes.
Well,
a lot of us don't know about it, but you're doing fantastic.
I think it's been a joint effort, this whole council. We've looked for ways to save money throughout the year, get our budget really tight, but doable. And again, looking and pushing one of our vendors, and they have stepped up, and that's all I can say. I can't say enough about them. I think they've done a great job, because every time Jan calls them and we talk about it, they have stepped up and met more than I thought they would. And like I say, it's terrible personally, I believe, for this economy that interest rates keep going up, and they're going to keep going up. But we might as well take advantage of it while we're sitting here, because, a year from now, they could be going the other way. And they will, and we'll have to ride it back down. So, yeah, that's all I got to say.
If I can speak again, break into the Grammy Awards here. I'd like to piggyback off of this from the CRA meeting. I can't remember who was here and who wasn't. We were talking about there's $1 million some in CRA. This is for the council that wasn't here. I'd like to take a look at a portion. We'll do it in the next budget workshop. I'd like to take a look at a portion of that money, see what projects we think are going to come up, and then if we don't, I'm just going to make up numbers. If we know we're not going to spend $500,000 of that money, that we can take a look at doing the same thing that you and Jan have done with this, so we're not leaving money on the table.
Because it would be a separate CD, I have to keep the CRA funds separate.
That's a good thought.
And even if it's 200,000, it doesn't have to be $500,000.
No,
it can be a smaller amount, but just to be able to capture some of this.
Exactly, because we're talking 5% now. We're not talking 0.01, 0.02%. So we're talking significant money on significant money.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So we can,
Good deal.
And if you want, we can, we'll go over the CRA budget on Monday. That budget, I believe, will be fairly final with the data I have.
Okay, great.
Again, millage rate does drive it, so we'll have to see where that goes, but I still think there's a nice little chunk of change that we can put into a CD and capture those higher earnings.
Thank you, Jan. You all good?
I'm good.
Okay. Department head reports.
I just wanted to point out that next month, September 4th would be our regular scheduled workshop, but it is the Labor Day holiday, so we need to reschedule that meeting to the 5th. Andrew, will that work for you?
Tuesday, on the 5th, I do have a regular meeting with another municipality.
How about Wednesday? Or does that get us too close?
Would the Wednesday be okay? And then we would just have a week between meetings instead of the...
Mandy?
Clear on Wednesday for me.
You are good for the 6th?
I am.
Okay, so we'll schedule the workshop in September for the 6th. And we would just have to work to get that agenda published the very next day. So we would need to be ready to go with that council meeting agenda because that's putting us 6 days out. We like to do 7, but that'll work.
And Mandy, while we're talking about it, was one of the workshop meetings in September going to be a council meeting as well? So there's first and second reading on the vacation rental ordinance before October?
Well, the 13th will be a council meeting, and that'll be the first budget hearing. And then the 27th will also be a council meeting for the final budget hearing. So we can have first reading on the 13th, final reading and public hearing on the 27th.
Okay.
When is that second, about the budget meeting in September?
The 27th.
27th.
That's your final budget hearing where you adopt your final millage rate.
Right.
We have a budget to start with 10-1.
And what would that be, 5:30?
Yes.
Okay.
And Mandy, 5:30 on the 6th as well, correct?
Yes, sir.
So all 3 Wednesday meetings in September are at 5:30.
Yes.
Good deal.
And we do have a special budget workshop on Monday that starts at 4 o'clock. And yes, Julianne, there was a mention of inviting the county here for that workshop, but Commissioner Bryant is not available. So I gave them the dates of our meetings in September and asked them to let us know their availability then. So I'll let you know if I hear back. The only other thing I would like to mention is we did notify council that we were looking at significant increases in insurance premiums this year. This is pretty much across the board. Property, auto, liability, health. And we did meet with our agent to go over our renewal quote for United Healthcare, and we did experience a 30% increase, which, well, I was not surprised. It only went up 4% last year. But overall, considering some people that don't take the insurance, we only have about 12 people right now, 12 people who are on the insurance plan. So that was an overall increase to the budget of less than $10,000, even with a 30% increase. However, we did go out, have them go out and get us quotes from other carriers to see if we still could not save some money. And what we ran into, we could save a little bit of money by switching from United Healthcare and going with Blue Cross, but we would experience a disruption to half of the employees because of their providers. Networks are different, so people would have to change doctors. In the Blue Cross network, some of the prescriptions that the employees currently have listed would not be available through the Blue Cross network. So I'm recommending that we stay with our current plan, current level of benefits this year, and be prepared to go out for bid next year if it becomes necessary, if we experience another increase of that magnitude.
What was the difference in cost?
It was about $3,000
Okay.
per person. And I also reached out to the FMIT because they are also, they do also offer health insurance through their self-insured pool, but they contract with United Healthcare to provide their network. And so their contract with United Healthcare prohibits them from competing against, I guess, themselves.
Gotcha.
So they could not quote us this year. So I just wanted to give you an update on that and just let you know the efforts that we have made to try and save some money, but it's, unless we want to significantly affect the employee benefits, provider networks, prescription availability, I don't recommend that we do that.
And council, if I may, I did work it into the budget, and we still have a surplus. And the one revenue I was waiting on has come in $31,000 less.
Which revenue was that?
That was the communication service tax. So even with all these adjustments I put in for this version you're going to be seeing, I was able to put the health care in, and we
Okay.
still have a surplus.
Okay.
So,
So, just make sure I got it right. So Blue Cross Blue Shield was coming in at $3,000 less per employee?
Oh, no, sir. I thought you meant what was the difference in increase per employee per year with the 30%.
No, I knew that one.
I don't have it right off the top of my head.
I mean, was it insignificant?
It was some savings, but it wasn't a whole lot different.
Okay.
I would say it's probably somewhere, from what I recall, looking at the numbers, right in the middle of
Gotcha.
staying with United Healthcare at the same benefit level and actually going to a decreased benefit level.
Right.
And there being the difference somewhere in the middle.
Gotcha, okay, I'm good.
I think it might have been about $1,000, $1,000 to $1,500, so right in the middle somewhere.
Okay, gotcha.
I don't think I have anything else.
Okay.
Can I just ask for like a status update on that application for the boat mooring?
Yes, I did communicate with Mr. Couillard the other day and provided him with, we had gone back and forth in email a few times, and he had indicated that there might be some other things required by the city, like such as a resolution or a proclamation or something like that, when he spoke about what would be required for the application to FWC, and I'll just go back to it. So in his initial review, he says, we have assessed the project to identify new mooring zones for the Rainbow River to the Blue Run River access point and agree that we can assist in achieving this. Applying for, arranging the installation, and maintaining water regulatory signs is what our natural resources team does. We have had success implementing similar zones on Lake Kerr and Lake Weir for public safety reasons. Here's a breakdown of our review. First, he said completing the actual application is relatively easy. Mandy can provide us with the specific narratives as needed. And I have since provided them with the narrative that I started out with when I first attempted to fill out the application myself. The second thing was create the signs. We have the staff to do this. I'm sure if we look hard enough in our server, we'll find designs we've already done. So the county would be doing the design of the signs. Make applications to U.S. Coast Guard, U.S. COE, and FDEP. He said, I'm not sure how quickly the Coast Guard reviews the comments or permits, but I do know the U.S. COE has been taking an exceptionally long period of time. Each of these will require a separate application and perhaps a proclamation resolution from the city. So my question back to him was, do you need anything more from us to complete the application? Did you find out if a proclamation or resolution from the city will be necessary? So I communicated that back to him, and he said, okay, we'll get started on it. That was the last of it. And then you all probably saw, I don't know if you saw it or not, but the email that I sent you today, with the signs that Public Works has already put up out there. Here. That's on the bridge. And this is over by the Coger's dock. And the sign says, no mooring or anchoring within 150 feet of vessel exit per Florida statute 327-41091A. Fines up to $500. And then there's another one that they put out that has the has the no swimming sign attached to it. And that's the one on the bridge. That's the no swimming on the Blue Run Park side of the river. We don't want our safety committee to see that ladder on boat. And that's it. So I'll let Chad go ahead with his report.
Could I ask one more question before we go to Chad?
Yeah.
Was August the slated time for Granicus go live, and where are things at with Granicus?
We do not have our encoder yet. Our encoder is on back order, and that's what allows us to live caption the meetings. It's due to be delivered at the end of this month, and we're going to work with Granicus. They will send someone on site to help with the installation because it is a piece of hardware. Andy will be involved in that process too. We will do all of our final testing in September, and we look to go live beginning of October. And we've also put together an announcement for the website, which will probably get out very soon, at least by the end of this month, so people have plenty of time to understand the way things are going to change. And we don't just come into a meeting and then all of a sudden people are like, where's YouTube, where's Zoom? And, you know, so I had asked Julie to prepare something, sort of a public announcement to put on our website to prepare people for the changes. And rather than be able to get on Zoom or YouTube, they'll have to just go straight to the website and watch the meetings live on the website.
Awesome. Ready for Chad?
Yeah.
Chad?
Just have a few mostly updates. On the art center, tomorrow, F&T electricians will be there to give us a quote on what it's going to cost you to put a light switch and run the wiring that's necessary to operate the lights in the art center. Duke Energy was out today and run the power lines to the EV stations. They haven't went live yet, but it'll be in the near future soon to make that final connection. The work orders for Central Ice Council meeting was able to close out 83 work orders in the city. From Maple Street to the boat ramp, we had used 12 bags of cold patch trying to do all the potholes through there. Box Springs project there on Cherokee Circle, the stormwater drain. We was able to get that water jet through there and the camera and found out the root system and stuff that was growing there. So that should be pretty much solved. We got a couple more roots to remove, and hopefully we won't have any flooding there anymore. Boat ramps down here, we replaced them bumper strips again. We end up trying to use fire hose over top the old bumpers and hook them in so they might last longer, be more durable. So they're replaced for now, for the trial. See how that comes out. And I believe that's, the signs are up, that Mandy showed a picture of, we ended up putting 3 of the warning signs on a bridge, which was able to connect them to the panels they have for like people, all down the bridge.
Right.
So this way we didn't connect it to the bridge, but it's on the bridge, so do that. And one dead center, one we put on by Mr. Kroger's property there, on the sign on front of the dock, facing the boat ramp at Blue Run, and the other one was dead there in front of the canoe kayak launch.
I saw.
They can't, it's high enough up that as soon as you make the turn, it's high level.
Right.
So
No, they look good. They look good.
now we just let Chris and Ron handle it from there.
Be glad to.
Yeah. There you go.
How close is Public Works to being fully staffed?
We just picked up a new person. It'll start the 28th, and that closes out everything.
Good deal.
Fantastic,
What's that?
fantastic.
Yeah, we figured out with station time, hours, and leave time, we'll need that person, it'll be short burning up, using them hours.
Right.
Good. Good.
So we're going to fill the,
We filled the service worker for one person.
gotcha. Okay, gotcha. Okay.
And I know I'm jumping around a little bit, but Mandy, isn't there, wasn't there someone in community development who's come on now as well?
We have offered a temporary 90-day assignment to someone who came and approached us and was interested in working for the city. She actually comes from Inglis. She worked for the town of Inglis. I know her just through working with her as, they come to me and Jan a lot, the clerks over there in Inglis, for guidance and assistance and with questions and things like that. So I've worked with her and know her just that way, and Chad knows her also from doing code enforcement over there. But she understands that it's a 90-day temporary assignment that we have to advertise, and she would have to apply for the job, and we would have to accept applications and do interviews and that sort of thing. So,
And what's her primary function, what's she mostly working on?
permitting.
Thank you.
I'd like to just add to the Grammy Awards a little bit. Thank you, Chad and Matt. I don't think a lot of people understand what a big deal it was in Bot Springs and how long that road's been flooding. They literally cannot pull into their driveways. Their driveways are knee-high water. They have alligators living in their culverts because it's flooded all the time. The culvert that is right underneath their driveway, so they walk their dog through or something, or a little child, it was really quite a big deal. We didn't realize it had been going on that long, but Chad and Matt got all after it, and it was a struggle making it happen with everybody. They had to get together to do it. But awesome job, and I'm sure them people are going to be very grateful. Okay, Mandy, back to you.
I'll give you a report after this weekend.
Cool. We're fixing to get some rain in about 20 minutes.
No, because I actually walked my dogs down there. My dogs sniff around the culvert. These guys are thinking, there's too big alligators.
Chad, are you done?
I am.
Do you have anything, Jan?
I just have one comment. Trophies are not in the budget. Should we put it in next year's budget?
No, we don't need trophies. We just,
What's the Grammy Award without trophies?
My turn?
Yes, sir.
Now, this guy we might need a trophy for.
Are we ready for this one? First, I want to start out with, I know that through these council meetings, I heard a lot of, I've heard bad decisions from this council. I've heard this from this council. Bad. So in the honorable words of Mayor Dunn, I know that this kind of short people in here, but out there in Zoom land, I want to let everybody know this council is working hard, and they have the best interest of everybody out there. So I know sometimes it seems different, but they're forcing us to give the answers instead of just
giving money, so.
You have 4 fans on Zoom. And one of them is your wife.
At least there's fans. Update on the police department, things are going well. We're still on track for taking the road back on September 3rd, the night of September 3rd. We just got some new sod put out there, starting to get the police department back together, looking good. Our new equipment came in, our new tasers came in. That training will start Tuesday. For Ron and I, and then we'll be able to do the instructors and the rest of the officers there. The new body camera stuff, that training will come in towards the end of the month. So when the new officers go out and hit the road, they should have this new equipment ready to go.
Right.
Everything with the police department right now is just skyrocketing. We have our down spots, but every time we do, we come here and you guys fix it.
Great.
So.
Good deal. Great.
Any questions for us?
I just have a quick one. Do you guys log how much time you spend at Blue Run Park on the weekends supervising the people in and out so that we can build a database so that in the future, if we want to go to the county, we can say, we're allocating this much of our police force on the weekends because of the extra traffic that's here. So maybe is it
We
just
don't at this time. It's something that we can do, and partly it's because at the moment right now, the sheriff department is supposed to be doing that.
Oh, okay. But once we start doing it, should we document it?
Yeah, they have a detail there, so they're there on the weekends.
Yeah, so.
But we did here a few months ago, Ron was documenting all the stops and all the contacts and all the kind of things we were having out there. We can start that back up. And talk about stops, I kind of kept you all informed on what we did here recently with traffic.
Yes.
We did the wave-overs on Friday the 4th, where we stopped somewhere in the area like 10 cars, made 2 arrests for driving with no license. 1 went to jail for being an illegal alien. And then Wednesday night, in cooperation with the Marion County Sheriff Department, Highway Patrol, Williston, we were out Wednesday night and we ran a lot of traffic that night. There was a few drug arrests made, some more arrests made for driving a suspended license, another illegal alien bound. So we did a lot of work on that night. Somewhere in the area, probably 70 traffic stops done that just that night. And the following nights after that, I don't know if y'all went out and about. In the evening time, there was very little traffic out. So we had lots of phone calls. What's going on in Dunnellon? Why are there so many cops in Dunnellon? That's something we look to continue.
Great.
And still have those cooperations with the other agencies in the near future.
When you say we have officers from Williston, then do we send some of our officers up there when they have operation?
We can, yeah. They've asked before, and at this time we don't have the officers we send there. Very luckily, they sent us a female officer because that female officer was needed multiple times to search females. FHP had 1 female officer out. It was the sergeant, and she ended up working a traffic accident out on 200, so she wasn't here. So luckily we had that Williston officer here that assisted a lot. So.
Thank you for putting that together, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have one question, comment. Martha got up and spoke about speeding issues on Park Avenue. I just want to make sure you heard it. I know.
Wrote it down.
Gotcha. Say no more.
So, we know what those signs are. We understand the reasons behind the signs. And at the moment, we will not be enforcing that 15-mile-an-hour speed limit sign. It has not been a traffic study done on that. Speeding in that municipality area is 30 miles an hour. Until a formal traffic study is done, to lower it to 15, it cannot be enforced.
Okay.
So it is 30 miles an hour in a municipality. And we can get out there and we can enforce that.
Sure.
So
Gotcha. So my question, I mean, I think you answered my question. You guys at least take a look at it. I understand the 30 versus the 15.
We got lots of radar units, so.
Gotcha. Thank you, sir. I'm good. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ron.
Yeah, thank
We have to remove them 15 signs.
And, kind of, do we need to remove those 15-mile-an-hour signs?
That might be something to talk about later.
So, there is some issues that, you know, with that, but yeah, so there's something done study-wise.
Gotcha.
We can't afford
Yeah.
that.
So that's 15 miles on any road.
In Dunnellon, unless there's been a traffic study done on it. So on those roads they have not done a traffic study on, so they're 30 miles an hour. That's by state statute. But we'll get out there, and with school coming back right now, there's probably a lot of school time issue.
Right.
Parents in a rush.
Sure, sure.
So I blame it on the kids, but in middle school, they probably shouldn't be driving yet. So.
I'm all good. Everybody else?
I'm good.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chief. Council liaison reports and comments. What, yeah, we got
I just have a couple comments.
Yes.
Tonight, we saw a room full of people because of the Blue Run code, and I think overwhelmingly everybody tonight here was for it.
Right.
And I've gotten the gist that most of the members of the council, I'd say, are in favor of the project in some way. And what I'd like to ask is that, Wally, if it's not too big of an inconvenience, because one of the things I've seen is we vote no for something, and then a lot of people have a lot of interpretations of why we voted no. Is that if you could write a letter or an editorial to Riverland News and explain to them that this was brought to us 7 days ago, and that between the prospectus and the Forever Florida program, we want to find out what's going on between the two, but that we all do support it, and that so that it can clear up a lot of public miscommunication, because what I've seen a lot of councils do, I know they did in Miami a lot, they passed things, but they never explained to people why they did it, and then everybody got a lot of bad information.
Yeah, I agree. I think most people here support it. Like I say, I was actually in the group that put up some money to do it. I think what got me at the end was the confusion of which plan we were even talking about. I mean, was it the original one that our previous mayor had signed? Like I said, during this week, I got 2 or 3 other versions. I was having trouble, like Julianne even pointed out, there was a lot of information dropped on us in the last 2 days. And I think what we really should do is back up. Let's get with this group and figure out what do they think we ought to try to do, and see if we can come to a meeting of the minds and go forward.
Yeah.
Because I think it's worthwhile. I just don't want to get the city bound and spending a bunch of money that we don't have.
I understand.
Yeah.
And all I'm saying, okay, why don't you?
I'll just add, I'm not opposed to asking Wally as the mayor to write something, but I also think that we have to be careful, because everything Wally would write would have to truly be factual, and we haven't arrived at the facts together. And even if Wally came up with a great piece, if another council person writes to the paper and now we begin dueling articles by the council with opinions and not facts, I think it's dangerous. So I am glad so many people came out tonight. We can listen to the meeting after the fact, but I guess that's just my word of caution. I don't want dueling things in the newspaper. It's already a little bit over the top as it is.
Right. Okay.
I have some comments. Andrew, do you have a copy of the Dunnellon City Code of Ethics on your laptop, perchance?
No, not on my laptop. I would have to search it. I'm sure I have it in my email, or I can access it.
Julianne, your idea about your suggestion about maybe an outside group, a group outside of the city taking on the challenge of rounding up that 10% that would be required to purchase if Florida Forever, their appraisal person comes and works a deal with the owners. They never pay asking price. I've been told that again and again. They usually pay 70%. And if we take this off the plate from the city of, this is the third council, okay, Dane mentioned, 20-some years ago, this is the third council that's bouncing this project around again. And I understand the financial obligation, I understand this whole thing is muddied up right now. It doesn't upset me. When I came here today, pretty much figured out what the bill is going to be. Okay, what I have been batting around
Is this, excuse me, is this your council comment? I just want to make sure we're not back on the
Yeah, this is
discussion about
comment.
9/11.
Yeah.
Okay, this is your council
Yeah.
comment. Okay.
This is my council comment, I'm
All right.
sorry. But I've been bouncing around this idea of forming a foundation here. And a foundation that would be separate from RRC in the city of Dunnellon. And I don't want to go on and take up a bunch of time, but it happens on a lot of communities, especially smaller ones. And I've kind of talked to a few people, and everybody is like, yeah, we should do this. We should do this. And I think that might be the way to go. Take it off the plate from the city. Just sit back and we saw already that RRC had a great interest. We had people who were willing to buy lots and some. I have been told, Dwight Porter, who you all know, says, as soon as you all make a decision tonight, we're going to go to the owners, and there's several of us, and we're going to start buying up some of the lots. That's what I was told. Whether that's reality or not, I have no idea.
And I think that's why we have to stop until we can get facts, because you started off by addressing and saying that tonight I suggested that the public drum up the 10%, and that's not what I proposed. My point was that the management,
what are we going to get into?
If in some way the state purchases that land, we need someone to be responsible for management. That could be RRC, that could be some other nonprofit, that could be some group of people, but that does not have to be the city. So I wasn't talking about finances, I was talking about who would be in charge of the management, and then that doesn't have to be the city. But I'm going to stop talking about it because I don't have all the facts, and we'll bring it up at the next workshop. But thank you, Jan. Thank you.
I'm going to be sending you a letter of resignation. I'm going to be leaving this council. I'm still going to be here at meetings. I'm going to resign from this council not because of your decision tonight, but because our mayor violated our code of ethics. Within our code of ethics says there must be from each council person member a significant amount of respect for every person that attends our meetings. I believe that Wally Dunn's voice, his attitude, his offensive remarks, totally unacceptable and unwarranted, very much unwarranted. My kind of people are kind people. I can no longer sit on this council if I have a mayor beside me who's, supposed to be making decisions that I either agree with or not agree with, the public's going to agree with them or not agree with them, who address those people the way he did tonight. I can't sit here any longer. I watched the faces of those people as they were getting up and leaving. I saw anger, and I saw disbelief, and I also knew who supported us, all of us, except for Rex. Who supported us? Who got us here? Who campaigned for us? And I'm just sorry, that gross disrespect, I can no longer sit here. I will work in ways for the city other than sitting as a council member. And I will be writing a formal letter, but I just want to let you all know here that I'm done.
Jan, I hope you give us some cooling off period, and
that's why I asked Andrew to find that part in our code of ethics where it says about respecting the public that comes here, respecting each other as well as the public.
and I'm sure it's in there somewhere, and your point's well taken, but I hope you hope we can encourage you to do a cooling off period that may change your mind. We need a voice of reason. we'll all tend to get,
I'm not angry, I mean.
right, but we'll all tend to get out of boundaries sometimes when we get emotional, et cetera. I'm no exception, you're actually no exception.
These
But
people
we
that come here.
Right.
From outside the city, they're here all the time.
Right, and I agree with you.
They just came tonight.
I agree with you, but we keep each other in check, all right, is a good thing. If you bail out on us, now we have one less person that's willing to keep us in check. We keep each other in check, that goes very far. So I would ask you to take a cooling off period. Appreciate your input. Your input's probably correct. You know, with no disrespect to Wally, I love Wally, but I use myself. I would go over that line in a heartbeat if I'm not kept in check or try to keep myself in check. And I would just ask you if you would think about it, cool down a little bit.
I'm not going to say anything right now.
Okay, thank you. But
I'll second
Just second that.
I'll third that, because I've had to eat crow about things that I've said
Right.
publicly, that it's tough to sit here and be in real time, and
we're humans. Even the five of us are humans. And we got to answer to Mandy.
I want to say, you know, from my belief too, that, Wally, I want to say that I'm glad sometimes there's somebody here who's not politically correct.
Right.
Because I get so tired of things not being said because we're afraid of offending somebody. But so I want to give you a voice of support too.
Right, exactly.
I second what you said.
Exactly, yeah. It's a fine line, it's a tough line to walk.
It's a tough line, and we are the people that do it. And Ms. Cuppage, I do not always agree with you. I will tell you that. But I would never quit so that I would miss the opportunity to sit next to you and get the experience of you, because you do bring a lot to the table.
I appreciate that, Rex.
Right.
And Tim also.
And Julie and too. I don't want to.
yes, and Jen, I would second that you bring a lot to the table. It's important. Like, you know, I look back on the short-term rental ordinance, and you had a lot of feelings that were different from others on the council. It was important that you came and you shared that, and that you were a voice for, you know, the people that you were spending a lot of time talking with and working with. So.
You all know how I like to write letters.
No.
I've not noticed that.
I will tell you, I'm upset.
Upset's
I
okay.
want to write a letter of apology to these people tonight.
No. I feel you, Jan. We sure hate to lose you. Okay, any more liaison reports? Would that be you, Brenda? Are you one of those? Oh, not this time? Okay.
Well, I can say this about planning council. The planning council is, you know, I went to their most recent meeting last night. They're doing really good work. They helped us review the short-term rental ordinance just for, you know, for comprehensive plan. They had good questions. There's great conversations at those meetings. They have a new alternate now who's a business owner in town, which is really exciting, that not only is the planning council full, but we have an alternate. And then I just want to put out to let everyone know, because I know Mandy has competing priorities, but that I'm behind the scenes pushing a little bit on learning more about the special magistrate process, because there's been some work to identify things in the city, some blight. And so that we should be up and coming. I'm going to be hearing about it in the coming months. That hopefully we can get that process started. So I see that as an important priority. So while all you are hitting Andy up for other things, know that I'm waiting on the special magistrate stuff. That's all I got. Thanks.
Okay, we're done with council liaison reports and comments. City attorneys.
Yes, Council, I only have two things. I was just to address this, and since there were some questions asked, I was able to pull up the council code of conduct, and there are, of course, civility and decorum. You know, references within the policy and paragraphs there. And the only comment I have, and it is brought up, is this is exactly how it's supposed to unfold after the fact if there is an issue. As council members, it's discussed, and that's per the regulations or per the code, effective problem-solving approaches. So what happened and what unfolded here is exactly what is supposed to happen if it's not addressed via point of privilege at the time. So that I just want to state, and that's directly out of the council code of conduct. The only other thing I have to say, if you have not received it already, I have sent kind of a bundle of memorandums over to city staff that should be making their way to you. Included in there is a full legislative update on everything that's happened. As I alluded to before, there's not a lot of things in there that probably will make anybody smile. So, in the future, if we have a light agenda or something, if anybody has any questions, or if we have a heavy agenda and you all have questions, please let me know. And I'll be prepared to address, any questions that you have on legislation. As far as good news in there, I will say that, we did discuss this evening, debris removal, which is a huge, topic in Florida, and that's an area in the past that a lot of communities have had issues with FEMA with, 10 years ago and beyond getting reimbursed. One of the provisions in there does require the Department of Emergency Management to post a model contract, and it has been, because cities will not be reimbursed if they don't follow the federal procurement guidelines. So that will assist the city. The city does go through that process, but there is a model contract that's now available via the state to all local governments, which I think is a really helpful item to get everybody on the same page. So, 2 years, now that you have 1 year, 2 years coming up before you have to go back out, that'd be very, I think, helpful to the city. And just wanted to call attention to that since we are in hurricane season and something we just addressed this evening. Other than that, I have nothing else to cover.
Thank you, Andrew. Can I ask you something on?
Yes, sir.
Earlier this year, the legislature and the governor signed some information that says we have to fill out a Form 6. I received a questionnaire on that the other day. I don't know if anybody else on the council did, but I did. And I responded to it. My question is, does that look like it's going to stay the way it was passed, or do you have any indication that it might change?
I do not have any indication of where, I'm certain that until the legislative session starts, no, I don't have a pulse on, I do know that there will be lobbying efforts to make changes to it, but I don't have a pulse on where that might be heading. The League of Cities may have some information, but it's pretty early on and we're quite a ways away from session. So very difficult to tell at this point.
Okay.
I know that there are resources out there to help local governments comply. I have another city where I can check and see who the individual is and what their exact position is, but they're going to be coming in and making a presentation to council members on how best to comply with that and provide some information that route. And I can find that out and see if there's something along those lines here in Marion County. But to the point, that's not actually your question. I understand. I don't know where the legislature would be going with that.
Right. Well, I figured you hadn't heard anything. I just was surprised to get this questionnaire and whether some group was really trying to do something. I've learned in legislation, mainly on the tax side, that once something gets passed, it's hard to change it. So I don't know what it's going to change. And Jan, to address your question, if Form 6 goes into effect, I will resign. So you can stay. Because I'm not going to fill it out. I'm just not.
Mayor seat.
Well, with that, I apologize, y'all had to.
Motion to adjourn the group hug.
I'd like to amend that with a motion to adjourn.
Yeah. Apologize, y'all had to live with me stumbling through this. I'll make a motion to adjourn and we'll get Paulie back to Hammer. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Do we have a second?
I second.
Thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.